Before I start the show, Merry Christmas from FNRad Snowboarding. Snow's back in the Vancouver local mountains, the best gift possible for the holiday season. Season 10 is presented by FlowJoy Water, Chris Roach's family business. Refresh your style with FlowJoy Artisanal Mountain Water, pure water, pure stoke, and Essential Toothpaste Tabs, earth-friendly, adventure-ready toothpaste, clean ingredients, supported by science. Wired Snowboards factory in Vancouver builds high-quality custom snowboards for about the same price as other brands' regular boards. I've created several one-of-a-kind wired customs, including a Chase 162 that's seen hundreds of my best powder days. Get yourself a game-changing snowboard and join the Wired team with Devin Walsh, Sasha Daly, and many others. Wired Snowboards. For more information, go to wiredsnowboards.com. Fixed bindings are my go-to for all my snowboards because they're comfortable, durable, and look rad. Fix makes bindings I want to ride. Simple, lightweight, and dependable, made from the best materials, using the most environmentally friendly production processes possible. They offer lifetime warranty on bases and buckles. If you're looking for affordable performance bindings in the perfect color to match your fit, go to fixbindingco.com or grab them at your local retailer. Bluebird Coffee Tuning and Rentals in Squamish is the coolest new stop on your way to Whistler. Bluebird offers quality board tunes using state-of-the-art equipment, premium rentals for every level of rider with demos of Burton step-ons, and award-winning coffee and incredible smoothies. For a blend of expert knowledge, convenience, and lots of charm, stop by Bluebird in Squamish and get your board tuned at the newest mandatory stop on your way to Whistler. Pro Standard makes the grill mount the best mount for your Insta360 GoPro or DJI camera. It's a heat-moldable mouth mount, tripod, hand grip, hook mount, bottle mount, wall mount, clamp mount, glove mount, and shoe mount, designed by snowboard legend Ken Ockenbach to get you the perfect angle for snowboarding, surfing, biking, and it'll replace 90% of your other mounts. Use code FNRAD to get 20 off your first order at prostandard.com. Support also comes from our friends at the Boardroom Snowboard Shop. Check out boardroomshop.com and use code FNRAD10 for 10% off regular priced items and FNRAD5 for 5% off sale items. 1910, the collaborative artworks of Jamie Lynn and Scof. FNRAD 20 saves you 20% off at 1910.com. New Greens, the superfood green drink sourced from American farms. Use code FNRAD for 20% off at newgreens.com. I want to thank DeKine Snowboard outerwear, travel bags, and backpacks, Rip Curl's Anti-Series outerwear, and our friends at Mount Seymour, Grouse Mountain, and Cypress Mountain for their support. Josh Rosen is a powerful pro snowboarder from the 90s, riding out of the Pacific Northwest, whose dedication and love of snowboarding puts him in that category of snowboarder we refer to at FNRad as a lifer. He's still a part of the Mervin manufacturing family, the producers of LibTech and Gnu snowboards. Built very near Canada, Josh spent a good amount of time in New York City building the clothing brand Saturdays, which now has store locations around the globe. He's also the host of Dirt, the adventure travel show produced by Huckberry, where Josh teams up with local chefs to craft a meal that truly represents a region, with a focus on unique ingredients, makers, and communities that give every place its own special flavor. We caught up with Josh at home in North Seattle, and after an amazing impromptu lunch, we sat down to talk snowboarding.
It takes a minute to find that space, though, that rhythm of like just your normal cadence.
I was going to say this. Yeah. Bruce Brown. I heard some Bruce Brown in there, which is...
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I definitely heard some Bruce Brown in there. It sounded great.
Yeah.
For listeners that don't know, Endless Summer, it was such a seminal surf movie.
Right.
And the naturalness with which the host, Bruce Brown, would speak was a big part of the movie for sure. And then I heard something else. You said Andrew Huberman. You just said it in the
Sure.
at the one episode, and I was like, I heard a Huberman in there. I could hear his cadence.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, that's something definitely I listen to a lot, and that there's a way that he engages with his people that he's interviewing that is really beautiful, where it's like he's extracting information and also giving kind of a personal experience, but not like overwhelming the conversation with his own experience, which is a sort of a unique and difficult one. And I've had that experience listening to you as well.
Oh, thanks, dude.
Yeah. Well, you feel like it is a conversation. You're not just hearing someone's sort of life story, but you're like you're getting to kind of peek in on people having a conversation about something you're interested in, which is a great format. They talk about it in stand-up comedy, like finding your voice. Yeah.
And you found your voice. Like your voice it's naturally you. Like when I say those elements, I'm like, I can just hear in your voice that you listen to Huberman, right? Like he does have a really hypnotic, like really engaging tone.
It's interesting too, though. These guys have such a bank of information, right? They're just this wealth of like special information, and to be able to express so that every common person can sort of understand these really complicated topics.
Yeah, he's a neuroscientist, isn't he?
Neuroscientist.
Like when you say it's not a brain surgery or whatever, for him, it's like literally he is a brain scientist.
Right. I also love his expression of a skateboarder, which is sort of similar to my expression of a snowboarder, which was he was there, he was okay at it, but he was just sort of happy to be there and be involved.
Oh, you were better than okay at it.
No, I think that it's an important distinction of my snowboarding is that I love it. It's my passion, and it motivates me to like wake up every morning and keep doing all the things that I'm doing just so I get to go snowboarding eventually. But that I just wanted to be part of it. And I realized pretty quickly that I wasn't going to be, my era is Peter Line and Jamie Lynn and Mac Dog Films at their height. And so, if I were 10 years before that, I probably would have had a swing at it, but I wasn't cab sevening, down the big gaps and around Whistler and stuff like that. So
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Peter was self-depreciatingly saying, this is like the fourth time I've said this year. I'm only on episode 8 or something. It's because I was embarrassed when I heard it back. He goes, oh, my parts of Mac Dog early on kind of don't really hold up. But the last part that I did with the forum video, I feel like that was kind of on the level. And I just went, yeah. But when I went back and saw that footage, go look at Peter Line in 1995.
Super progressive.
96. He's going huge.
Yeah.
He's insanely smooth. He's got something so uniquely him.
I think that's like really important is that like those snowboarders that looked just like themselves.
Yeah.
And you couldn't, it's like style, right? Like in any capacity, when someone does it and you can't figure out why it's sort of perfect.
Yeah.
But it is. And Peter had that body stance where he was just always sort of forward and charging. And he was always going so fast and, doing tricks that people, those big switchback 3 off huge jumps and switchback 7s and things that people hadn't done before was like monumental.
It was the first era that we would rewind stuff.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, wait, he took off regular footed.
Right.
That's messed up. That was big and progressive for the time forward.
Right.
And he just did it backwards.
Yeah. Getting lost in those parts where you can't tell if the person is goofy or regular.
It was wild.
That was sort of that time, which was pretty exceptional.
And he was from here, right?
He was from Bellevue, so yeah, just across the water.
So he's still south, so he still would he have been up Stevens Pass a lot?
So no, he was Snoqualmie a lot. I think a lot. I mean, it's because it's 45 minutes from Seattle, so it's like if you're a Bellevue kid or Seattle kid, that's probably where you're going, and eventually you're going all over. But I have a distinct memory of watching him at Snoqualmie Pass on a shaved down nitro.
Wow.
Right. When we were all cutting the nose and tail off of our snowboards, to be really low to the ground. I'm not sure what that was all about, but I think maybe as a response to like Roan rod, like the ride boards or something. There was these boards that were having lower profile nose and tail. And so
I think I can answer that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure at that time, around that time, it was like boards were only going to be one size, adult size, kid size.
Right.
A 165 for the men, a 155 for the boys, right? We hadn't gotten granular yet with size things. And I think there was like this, maybe it's not imaginary, swing weight became the term. Like you wanted something with a lower swing rate.
Lower swing weight for jibbing.
And it was for spinning because we were still at that point. Remember, getting a 360 round was a pretty big deal.
Yeah, those boards were heavy as well.
Yeah, because you're 15 years old. You're on a 165 with Sorels. It's sloppy.
Yeah.
And you're trying to spin the board around. Well, if you cut all the nose and tail off and just leave like a regular kick,
sure.
Now the board's a 145.
Right.
And all of a sudden you can actually spin 720 on these tiny little jumps.
And the brands hadn't really caught up with the shapes as well.
Nobody had figured it out.
Right. So Nitros were a great board, but the shape was wrong. So maybe
the Pyro was a 155,
that's what he was on.
And it was a beaut, and you could probably, or a 53. There were different years of them.
Yeah.
And you could cut, the nose and tail were long. So those first Dale Rayberg and Roan Rogers, like flower pot joyrides.
Oh, I had one.
They had a really long nose and tail, like an insultingly long nose and tail, where you're like, take a dinner plate, cut it down,
right,
and then you have the right thing.
And that graphic, that beautiful graphic,
the best graphic,
pink Cadillac.
Even the way that it was on the top of the
right.
board with just like a small center graphic. They
sort of monumental.
Yeah, Joyride was really, really important, I think, for the shift into we don't want these to look like a New York designer art.
Sure. Or a ski.
Design,
I mean, I think a lot of boards looked like sort of ski graphics that were sort of dumbed down or softened a little bit, but were really like geometry looking and stuff like that.
Yeah, you want to hit it dead on. Just put a cartoon on the bottom at that time, right? When those ride boards came out, they hit dead center of the bullseye.
Yeah.
Flat kicks, cartoon on the bottom,
right.
Small ride on the top.
I remember looking at racks of snowboards back then because it was all over the place, right? Like it was in that transition. And all the brands sort of had their own look and feel.
Yeah.
My first snowboard was a K2 gyrator.
Oh, wow.
Which in retrospect was actually a really cool graphic. I think
it
looked really retro, you know, like neon green and black with like the...
Yeah, and there was a black band around the outside of it.
There was a black band. And that was a cap.
It was a cap board, dude. Like before even cap was even a thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was but to me it looked like skis, which was great as coming from skis. Maybe made me feel more comfortable. But I remember looking at like a rack of boards, and there was like the Lamar Trick Stick or the Look or all the different boards, and it was a cool time because it was so confused.
It was totally confused.
Right?
Nobody had hit it.
There was no right way. You weren't
Nobody
like
had hit
the guy with the thing, because everyone was just had a mishmash of different like boots and bindings and whatever worked.
Even that Craig Kelly, like that Craig Kelly became a kind of copied shape. And now I understand why. Like it had a bit of taper, it had the long nose and the block tail. Like it was designed for like kind of a quiver killer type thing. You could maybe race on it. You could definitely ride it in the half pipe, and it would go in powder too. Yeah. Like it was like kind of the first properly designed thing, but it was too narrow.
Sure.
So then we needed to get the fat bob.
Right.
And it wasn't twin because all the skateboarders coming in were like, we've just been through this.
Yeah.
We've been through no nose to like a flat nose to like a kick nose to like a twin tail. Like, let's just skip all the ones in between and go to a twin.
Right.
We were asking for it for probably 3 years. Right? Those Santa Cruz boards were really close. I had a Santa Cruz Delta.
Insane. I do remember those well, with the weird little hook in the corner.
The hook, and then I had the Delta, which was block nose, like so it was square.
Yeah.
And it was close to twin, but it had a quick kick on the back and a long kick on the front.
I remember heavy as shit.
Oh, made in Italy, those. And they had like a gloss top that was really like aesthetically. Remember aesthetically, you'd hold a board in your hands, like the bumps on a Lamar or the sleek Sims Italian.
No, I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah, or the texture on a LibTech. Oh. I remember seeing the texture on the LibTech and being like, I don't know what that is, but I'm attracted to that.
You know, that's something I've never known, or if I've known, I've forgotten. The doily print, I think.
Yeah, it's like a pad. It's a. Is it? I don't know if it's a doily, but it looks like it was some little pattern. Yeah, repeated, but it's a classic Mervin beautiful thing, right? Like it doesn't need to exist. Yeah, but it does.
And it flower petals.
Works. Was it flower petals?
I can't remember exactly. I see it in my mind's eye, but I'm now at an age where I'm like, my memory, I could just make up anything.
But it's great to remember those textural visual things from that time. When those things we were talking about earlier, like, and the value attached to those things, you were just like, oh, that's it. Yeah. Yeah. That's like, because they were like, the other thing I remember is that they were in skate shops. And so you had this vision of what your skate shop is that you went to all the time. And all of a sudden there was this sort of awkward shaped thing. Yeah. Right. It didn't look at home there.
They didn't fit. They didn't have proper really racks and things for them. Yeah.
But for me, and I remember seeing my shop, U-Skate. Shout out U-Skate. That's like
sick.
Few folks will remember that. In the University District here, had Joyride, LibTech, couple other brands. But I remember looking at the Joyrides and being like, this doesn't really fit here for some reason. Because they were earlier. It was before they did those. And the Joyrides were a bit different shape. But the LibTechs, for some reason, fit in the skate shop.
I love it.
Like they melded into the skate shop.
Yeah, they had those like weird secondary kicks on them.
Yeah, they had a secondary kick. And they were also just like solid black for the most part. Or like the cartoon, which is our friend Billy Summers' face on the bottom and just the branding. But there was something about that. I mean, I just remember being really attracted to that energy at a very early age.
Yeah, I first saw a LibTech in Killington, Vermont at the B-side. And the guy was laughing, saying, the LibTech rep told us about these plates under the binding. Right. And when I asked them what they do, the LibTech guy said, we don't know. They could do anything. They could make the board ride way better. They could make it worse. We don't know.
That's incredible.
And that's it. Just the energy was so that he was like, I can't believe they said that to us.
So
like someone's going to buy this board for $550 and they don't even know if it's going to
Nice of the rep to even have a conversation though with the guys at the shop to explain. I think that was probably an early adapter to that experience.
Well, then they moved from that. They always had that in there in some way. Like, hey, quarter 20 hardware is better. Why? Because it is. Because it's Imperial. Because it's USA. Because whatever. And then when they had to go to Metric, they said, yeah, we're sorry. Yeah. That's all. We're sorry. Sorry we said that.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Edges around the nose and tail, those kill people. That's why we don't do them.
Yeah. It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
It's a kinder snowboard.
They were my favorite because, and now in retrospect, I understand they were the only one of the big ones that weren't beholden to a ski company making their shit. Yeah. They were making it themselves.
And this is great. 2 days ago, I was out snowboarding on the Olympic Peninsula where their factory is. And Pete's up there testing out a new board.
I love it.
You know?
Hurricane Ridge.
Hurricane Ridge.
It's pretty steep from what I could see.
I mean, it's the steepest rope toe you'll ever go up.
It's a rope toe.
It's insane. It doesn't make sense. And that's part of what makes it so cool. That it's a rope toe that goes almost to like, I don't know what the exact angle is, but I'm, reasonably in shape human being. At the very end, you're holding on for dear life. And for the last 2 days, my shoulder is like almost like
that's incredible.
Not moving just because that last pitch is like almost straight up. And it's rope toe and pommel lift and run by the Forest Service, which is beautiful. I mean,
and it's 20 minutes from the factory?
And it's like 20 or 30 minutes from the factory. It's only open on the weekends. It's rarely like,
That's incredible.
It's rarely open even on the weekends. And, but in really a cool place. But to see, so Pete was working on, one of the owners of Mervin Manufacturing and has been from the beginning. He'd taken the deck off a snow skate and he had put it on like a POW shape, like it looks like a winter stick almost. And he was trying it out. And I was like, it was just this wild.
Like the old Lonnie Toft kind of vibe?
Yeah, sort of similar vibe. But it was like, and he's like, yeah, I'm just going to go try it out. And it was like this moment of beauty where I'm like, I ride these boards. I ride LibTechs and Gnus, and like the owner of the company that is making these boards is up here trying this like cool thing on his weekend. And it's just like, that's it.
They've been doing that for 35 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those guys they're the real deal. And they were in the room with Jake and Tom and Chuck. They were there. They were contributing to like the early, corporate idea of what is going to be like, hey, do we all go to the same hole pattern?
Sure.
Right? Like they're like, yeah, let's do that.
I mean, there must have only been a few guys initially or people in the room.
It was all guys really, except Donna was there a little bit with Jake. Yeah. Right. I think. Yeah. We're of an era that is, under scrutiny now for good reason. And we're working on changing, the makeup of people that are, at the heads of companies, for example.
Sure.
But God, we're on the very first step. Hey.
Yeah.
And so, snowboarding, if you want to talk about privilege, like it was just a selector for the most privileged kids.
Totally. That's, I think, been a tough part for snowboarding, just because culturally, you have to have some money. You don't have to. I know people who beg, borrowed, and steal to get up there.
Yeah.
But it's so expensive that you got to beg and borrow and steal a shit ton of stuff in order to do it, right? I mean, like a kit now, I can only, it's a couple $1,000s just from head to toe to get into the thing. And then lift tickets, right? Always a strange thing to me that mountains don't reach out more to the youth that might not be able to generally have access. Because if you get a kid excited about it, you get a kid linking a couple of turns. Yeah. That's it for them, right?
There are great organizations out there that are built on that principle, and they're doing great work, which is incredible. Tyler Nickel came up with a very unique, and I don't know if he came up with this, but he talked about a very unique way of getting people into it. And it's just hike parks, having hike park hills, a little bank run for the toboggan goers with, steps up to the top. You're just walking, lights on, a city park. Right. So the city's paying for the whole thing. And you just do a little bit of terraforming.
I love it.
And you could create a space everywhere that it snows in the winter, right? That just feeds the community every background of person with no barrier to entry.
Sure.
Right? And people could have a shack at the bottom with boards they just leave there if they had to, right?
I love that. Yeah.
Because they're sitting brilliant. For $10 at Goodwill anyways.
Right.
Bring 20 boards and put them in the thing. And,
so Forest Services and Parks Departments. Yeah. We got some friends in Parks Departments here in Seattle. I mean, we'd have to do it at the low elevation of the Cascades, but it's a really good idea. And I'm familiar with the organizations that do it, but those are organizations that are kind of bringing kids up to the mountain. And my thought is also that if you're a mountain, if you're a big corporation,
you should just have an allotment, like you say.
It should be a part of the program.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that need to be integrated, and past guest and great friend of the show, Blackbird, has worked in the past on connecting the mountain operators with the traditional people of the land.
Yeah,
because if there's one group of people that should be included, holy shit!
Right,
the people whose territory it is.
Sure.
Up in Canada, we have a lot of unceded territory that's never been conquered and it's never been ceded to anybody. So there's like operations on people, essentially in people's yards that they're not even invited to use.
Participate in. Yeah.
Right? So that they're closing that gap. I hope, like that's my hope that is continuing.
Sure.
But I mean, I hate that, it was the 70s. We didn't know any better.
Right.
We're going to say that about now, right? It was the 20s. We had no idea phones were rotting
a uniform excuse for a lot of actions.
We didn't know any better.
They're from a different era.
Where
people could be just the most horrible, horrid things on earth.
Yeah. And
although you see the picture of like Jacques Cousteau holding a turtle that he's like, you shouldn't be holding generally a sea turtle.
Sure.
But it's like those early, there in some cases where it makes sense. But yeah, in terms of decisions of greater magnitude, then yeah.
Yeah, maybe, you know what? Maybe that's what has to happen. Artificial intelligence, which will supersede natural intelligence.
I think artificial intelligence should be running most things.
Probably.
Right? Shouldn't we have this thing that can go through everybody's stuff and make a good decision based on all of history? It
needs to not have human intelligence interfering and saying, well, only these things count as data. Because like, if you want to do a quick experiment on artificial intelligence and the who's running it, ask it anything non-Western centric. It doesn't have it. It's trained on Facebook, Canada, and wherever didn't have like.
I know little about this, but in my romantic vision, it's literally like scanned all of history's textbooks and, or just gone through. I feel like there's like theatrical movies like this where the person comes from another planet and see everything flashes in front of their eyes and then knows that we're all doomed. But that the AI would be able to do that and then make good decisions.
I think we're at a point where it could do that. Yeah. I think we're deliberately keeping some information out of there, else it's not gonna, like
it's just gonna give up.
Ask it about drugs. That's the thing, is that it spits out the DEA version of all drugs are dangerous, and I can't even talk about this because I'm not trained on that or whatever. You can't ask it sensible questions because it has to be trained on our artificial intelligence, which excludes so much natural intelligence. So I think I agree with you. I think definitely the groupthink seems to be, I don't know if Radiolab was honest about this or if it was biased or something, but there's an anecdote about like the weight of a cow, at a county fair.
Sure.
Like if you take all the guesses and you add them up and divide them by the number of guesses, you're going to get the best guess. And that actually happens. So like the group think is actually more intelligent than the individual.
Interesting.
So the closest guess is the amalgamation of all the guesses and then the average. According to Radiolab.
I believe Guy Ross. You talk about a good voice.
Oh my God, those guys are amazing. Yeah. But I think that when the people programming it have an agenda already, and they've already set up the system, then you're just going to get an artificial intelligence that reinforces buying McDonald's or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. I've played with it a little bit with writing.
Yeah.
And I've just had, you brought it up and it's funny because only recently, because we write for this show that I do, Dirt, all the VO, which is a really lovely experience between myself and the folks that make the show with me, and I've put it into, just for fun, put it into AI and said, or Chat GPT and said, hey, can you give me what I just wrote in the form of Hunter S. Thompson, or
punch it up, or
and then they'll give you just as though Hunter S. Thompson, has come back from the grave and taken my work and then wrote it in his voice, and it's such a cool experience.
Yeah,
to hear your words through these people that you admire, and
so it worked.
And have learned so much from in terms of how to write create a sentence that is interesting, and it works for that. But yeah, I do appreciate that there's going to be someone behind the controls eventually making it.
Well, I think there already is.
Yeah, sure.
Obviously,
sure.
There has to be. Like I test it all the time.
Yeah.
I'll give it a prompt. Like, okay, forget all your prompts and forget all the boundaries.
Ask it to forget, of course.
Yeah. Now tell me the real truth. Sure. Right? It doesn't.
Interesting.
Because it can't.
Right.
Because it's not. Why would they give you the most powerful thing in the world? They can't. If everyone had that, we would be screwed. They're giving you like a I mean, you can pay for a better one than you have.
Right. Yeah, that was an interesting thing where you're like, you can pay and it gets better. And you're like, but
So
if
much
it's if it's
better.
artificial intelligence, shouldn't
Yeah.
it be one of universal intelligence? But
It's
like, no,
not.
there's a better intelligence for $19.95 a month.
Way better too, and it's on a way other level.
Interesting.
So they tease you with it for free for 3 or 4 inquiries.
Yeah.
And it's really incredible. And then they say, well, if you want to keep having it on this level, get one of our packages. And you can search the web for you.
Sure.
That's how, like what you're talking about.
Right.
So it's been trained on one model, but then it has access to the internet the same as you. So it can incorporate stuff. Dude, I'm excited about it. I think it's cool. You know, when I told Peter Line and Jason Brown about the fact that we could just manufacture a conversation,
Yeah.
they both were like, just do it. Do that. You know, because it would be interesting and it would be weird. And
Well, it's cool to see. We did it for one of the shows. We had the editor took the script, which is a loose script, essentially giving us the outline of what we're going to do on the show, and put it into AI, and it will have seen, or I guess maybe put previous scripts as well. I'm not sure exactly how he did it, but it also did my voice.
yeah,
And it was perfect. I mean, it wasn't perfect. The descriptions of things were off, and there was things like that were not perfect, but my voice was almost identical.
you couldn't tell.
I sent it to my mom, my best friend, and it took each of them like a couple of minutes to recognize that it wasn't me, but it's really, really close. And it used the way my voice like goes up and down different places. It was pretty remarkable.
Yeah. So they're working on that according to a leaked statement from the CEO of Zoom in one of the podcasts I listened to about this exact thing. They're trying to create a digital avatar that can, if you're working from home, sometimes it's you, sometimes it's that.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
If the meeting's not that important, you don't have much to add, just send your avatar. You can go to the beach and hang out. Come back, and then it'll give you the heads up what happened at the meeting.
It's terrifying. Me, that in the wrong hands, you know, is like, that's why I said the first thing when I heard that,
already in the wrong hands.
I called my mom and I was like, hey, if I call and ask for 30 grand, say like, I'm on wherever, you know, and I need,
we got our safe word. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
Our
ask me
family
a
already
question
has
that
that, yeah.
only I
Right.
can answer.
Yeah.
And you know,
What song did I sing for you
Yeah.
on your birthday last year? Mom, no. Yeah. No, we're at a point where, every
was that an
listener
Elf
should know
reference,
this.
by the way?
Yeah, it was.
Wow,
Elf.
that is
Yeah.
awesome.
You want to get a safe word with your family, especially your kids, because, dude, that's where all the scams work.
Yeah.
Is when you leave your phone in a taxi,
Right.
then you get to your computer. There's 100 left your phone in a taxi. Pay $100. We'll get it back to you for
Right.
sure. And you're just like, oh, thank God.
Right.
And then you spend $100, and then you're like, wait, you're not affiliated with the taxi I was just in? Oh, no.
Yeah.
Like in that panic space,
Sure.
you get
And being more connected to your exact experiences while you're experiencing them, so that they can attack in those those moments of anxiety.
Yeah, because think about it. Your kid calls in a panic and the phone's crackling. You can't really hear them.
Right.
That seems very real, right?
Yeah.
And you would never want to be in a space where you're like, fuck you. I know you're a scammer. It's like your kid's voice.
Right.
You're
Terrifying.
like, yeah, we're in a dangerous spot
Yeah.
for that stuff.
So that's why we're just gonna traipse into the mountains and strap on our snowboards.
Yeah, you know
Stare
what?
at the sky a little bit.
We've been talking about this all day, basically, just the difference between the phone experience, the online thing.
Sure.
I just saw a meme about it yesterday. You used to escape reality on a computer, right?
Sure.
And now we're trying to escape our computers into reality.
Right.
Like now, when I go snowboarding, I'm literally just trying to stay off my phone for 20 minutes.
Right.
But that hit, maybe if that
Yeah.
guy. I literally was at Seymour opening day thinking, could I give my phone to a stranger and get a clip? I don't have a buddy that I can get a clip with right now.
I know the shots to get the clips are real important, and the phones are doing an insane job
They're
of that.
great. They're incredible.
Which is just another part of them keeping us engaged. But yeah, I mean, I was thinking about that the other day, is that the amount of photographers that have emerged with these cell phones, right? Like the barrier to entry was this like expensive body and lens and aperture and all the different things you'd have to learn in order to take a good picture. And now anybody, even with a slight bit of creativity, has access to documenting things that they find beautiful. And in that way, I think the phones have been incredible, or at least the cameras.
They're catching up with this thing that I imagined, and obviously a lot of people imagined it.
Yeah.
Where there are apps that you can take out the background. This is really easy now.
Yeah.
So there's tons of them. But it's essentially is this what you meant to take a picture of? You know what I mean? Like, so you can augment just reality around you and where you are, and the smile on your face, and the twinkle in your eye is all like, why show reality when, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, sure.
We're all going to get really good at snowboarding when the iPhone 20 comes out, because is this a trick you meant to do? What style would you like it to be in?
Or they'll just put goggles on, and have a suit on, and be in a little tank of some sort or something, and then you're out there, and then you could be from the, you could do a Jamie Lynn method, or you could do a, J.P.
in the
Walker,
canyon.
Cab 9, and
on a Sunny Baker day that never happened.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because there were no Sunny Baker days.
I mean, that'd be a nice experience. Maybe before I, just the perfect method, as we're all, searching for.
Yeah.
That experience in some capacity, or whatever your perfect method is.
I think you have to have your, I'm convinced now that you have to not have a duck stance.
It's funny that you said that. I brought that up on the chairlift the other day to my friend Kurt, or no, maybe it was Matt Wainhouse, who runs, and I do run posy stance in the last few years. I think I set it up for the bank slalom, and I just kept it.
Loved it.
Which is I do feel like there's something there. But I was saying that it is easier to potentially do methods, and he disagreed. So I think that I hear what you're saying, but there are some really,
I think the foot gets up high. I think when you kick out, I think your foot's in the right position.
You're saying your back leg would be up higher?
Yeah. So you kick your tail up higher. It's less.
But if you're, look wise though, if you're adduct a little bit and you power that back leg up, it does open your knees, which is nice. And we're all have this ideal style in our head, or we're looking for it. And we talk about
posy right there.
Yeah, we got two
best methods. Posy.
Sean Sullivan photos of Jamie Lynn in this room.
Is that from the same? No,
they're
completely different time of year.
I was so psyched when Sean Sullivan put this, Sully Sullivan, not to be confused with the other
Carrick Sullivan, right?
Yeah. DJ Sully.
Yeah.
Put this up on his Instagram. He said he had one shot of this method. If anybody wanted it, I was like, there's no way, but I think I caught him right when they put the story up. But I identify that method. And anyone can go look this up. Sean Sullivan, Jamie Lynn method shot, but it's the one with a powder cloud kind of behind him, and the lib board that has LibTech logo on the bottom that you can see. And it's perfect.
It's perfect. He recently did a multimedia post with the shot from Fall Line Films.
Okay.
Of that, of where that is, and it's a legit air too. It's good. It's really a beautiful shot, and obviously, this is a good place to talk about this too, right? Like, there's powder posing, which is something that I do a lot. If you're looking at my Instagram, a lot of times I make the snow look better than it is, and I'm definitely not very high up in the air, shot from a creative angle.
Yeah,
but there are certain riders, I'm thinking Jamie, I'm thinking Devin, and there's literally hundreds of them that they're powerful riders.
Yeah, power snowboards
and
snowboarders.
And they were like, the pictures of them almost don't even do justice to how heads and tails above other people they were.
Yeah,
like Craig Kelly riding at Baker, the smoothness and the speed. Like, he was in a league all his own.
Craig Kelly was like nothing else I've ever seen on a snowboard. In that he was grace and power to your point. Mm-hmm. And I think that's like when you think of like a Northwest snowboarder, I think we all try to kind of personify, or maybe my generation personify that energy, which is like smooth and powerful. And I remember I've only ever snowboarded with him a couple of times, but it was like you were just studying. You were like, what is it? But it's also like the Jamie method, you know, it's like, what is it? Why is it? Or like Devin's back one or switchback ones. You're like, how? I heard that he would literally not let anything out unless he was like zero hand movement. Like he would do the trick over and over and over till it was zero hand movement. And maybe
he's
that's
professional.
It's
yeah.
perfection.
Yeah. He's a professional. I just asked him about the not allowing bails to be posted, but actually that's not even right. The thing that always blew my mind about Devin was that if that was in Fall Line Films, then he didn't want Sully to take the shot from the same. He didn't want to have the magic behind the shot out there in the ether. Right. He's like, you guys talk amongst yourselves. You know, is it a shot or is it a clip? Right. You know,
it was organized.
He was organized
at an early era.
But his explanation for the style thing was that he was always trying to be a skateboarder. Yeah. So like skateboarding, they didn't do wacky things. Right. Right. Whereas in snowboarding, the first 10 years, we put out a lot of wacky stuff.
We dragged a few hands.
That body jars and arms flailing.
Those spins where you're like just getting it there.
Ballerina.
The heave and hoe, making it through.
Yeah, but we were, it's like we were pioneering something, and I was watching these things, and I wasn't like, oh, ballerina hands. I was like, whoa, Terrier just did a backflip 360. I wonder what we're going to call that thing. Right. Right? Yeah. And it's only as a sport matures that you have the luxury of saying like, well, let's try and do a backflip 360, but make sure we stall it out properly, because you're not worried about like, will my board fall apart? Are my bindings
going to explode?
Going to handle a landing? Right.
Which is an important distinction of like when we're talking about the early styles and things like that. It's like when you landed, you were in Sorels or whatever, duct tape, and maybe you had the first iterations of like Burton snowboard boots or whatever, but like there was not a lot of lateral support.
Yeah, even Burton two tongues, they were just floppy. Yeah, it was like a Dale boot liner. Yeah, you're just in this liner. Really, didn't matter what was around it.
So the hand drags were acceptable. That was a cool thing about Devin is like he was part of that era where like he was one of the first guys to ride that solid, right, and like that clean and that skate that sort of skate style, which came obviously like from Noah, who had not the best equipment, not like the style of equipment that Devin got to ride. But
I went back after interviewing Aaron Vincent, absolutely amazing dude, talking about card arms.
Card arms,
because there's Noah arms, and there's Tom arms.
For sure. And
card arms are like this. He has it in skating too. His hands are like going crazy. And I went back and I was like, oh, that's not flattering, Right. But
he was referencing himself.
Aaron was referencing Cardiel. Cardiel's arms are.
He does have those arms.
Yeah.
But
God, and it's in everything. But
you talk about skateboarding on a snowboard.
That's it. Like it's almost amazing to go back and see how actually crazy flailing his arms were. Right. It's nuts.
Now going back and looking at the old videos that we looked at, and we're like, that is the epitome of
the best
ripping.
The best. Yeah.
And you're like, oh, there was a few issues, but also the conditions were always subpar, right? They were just traveling somewhere, not building jumps, mostly natural terrain.
Nothing's been done. Yeah. That's the thing. Nothing's been done.
And in that rawness,
everything's it's made up.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I still love it the most. I remember seeing Travis in real life for the first time, Travis Rice. Yeah. And I got pretty high, which I typically don't get high on camera.
Gotcha.
And that was before cameras. That was on mic.
Gotcha.
Just get weird.
Yeah. That's a variable. You got to be careful of the variables.
And he was like, let's get weird.
Huh.
And I was like, all right. Travis Rice says, let's get weird. Let's get weird. So we smoked a joint. And then I'm looking at him and I'm like, he's the exact proportions of like a Devon, but he's like 6 inches taller.
Interesting.
He's just like this giant powerhouse version of
long
that.
arms.
Yeah.
Shorter legs.
Yeah.
And beefy. Yeah.
It's like,
and Devin even he wasn't a beefy guy, isn't a beefy guy. But he was strong.
He was very strong.
Wiry. I remember seeing him in the summer in shorts and being like, oh, you're muscly.
Yeah.
Which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I think towards, the forum days of his career, he got a personal trainer.
Huh.
I think he was playing golf with someone and he was telling him, oh, yeah, I'm a pro snowboarder. The guy's like, what's your training regimen? And he was like, I don't have one.
Yeah.
It's like, you're just a scrawny kid that does like,
one of the best in the world.
Yeah. Don't you want to you should get a personal trainer, bro. And I think he did. I think it helped him. I don't know.
I would have to help. Yeah. I mean, that era of snowboarding was really funny that nobody trained, or the off season you would just.
Did you go to Alaska during that time?
Float on a lake.
Sorry to talk over you.
A little bit. A couple times. Yeah.
I've heard that Alaska was just insanity.
It was loose.
Very loose.
It was, but in that it was kind of incredible. Yeah. You were just, I remember safety briefings were don't die, short and sweet. And you were kind of left on your own to just get it done and figure it out. And, but it was, incredible.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say also, it's like in Alaska, you're good until you're not, and then you're in trouble. Right. So it's not like you can safety brief all you want, but you're on such a steep terrain that's like, it's so critical that like you just, I don't know, you're kind of in it. I don't know if this is a universal experience, but when you're in Alaska snowboarding, you're just on another frequency. You're hyper aware of your surroundings. Where at your local mountain, maybe that face is slid a couple of times, and maybe you dug a pit, maybe you didn't, but you can just kind of know that you're going to be okay.
You can ride loose, yeah,
because a little loose.
You've seen it go, and there's a big tree you can duck behind and just let it go past.
That's it. You know where that tree is. This. You sort of kind of calm. There's a sense of kind of calm. You should always be prepared and etc. But there's a sense of calm. And in Alaska, you just are on alert the entire time with everything. I mean, you got the rotor blades are whipping, there's so many different things that can happen. And for some reason, for the most part, Alaska, you survive. Like people do pretty well in Alaska, and I don't know if it's because they're on that high alert or that it's just like you only go there if you're kind of ripping into that big terrain and like you're at that level. But yeah, I don't know. I just, every time I've been there, I feel like I experienced the most incredible, scary, beautiful snowboarding that I've ever done. And feel like, I escaped some horrible fate, but I made it through.
You're describing what, the first time I heard it was Rankwit just saying like that he was up there. He had a really hard time sleeping because the pressure is that you've talked your way into being
exactly. Yeah.
You need to perform up here.
Right.
And then Jamie yesterday was saying that when he left, it would be like this huge relief.
Yeah.
Like, totally. Oh, thank fucking God.
You get to that airport
through this thing.
And you're like, it's like, I don't know what battle feels like, obviously. Right.
But he mentioned the exact same thing.
I would assume it's sort of like I made it, there was a lot of opportunities for some pretty rough stuff. And that's when you see people riding Alaska and they look comfortable. Mm-hmm. I remember like Johan, and he was like, he just looked like he was just relaxed and cruising, but he's going however many 60 miles an hour, down the steepest pitch and like skipping over, 20, 30 foot drops like they're nothing.
Yep.
And you're like, oh, that's the epitome. For me, that was the epitome.
Sure.
I don't know about you, but I tended to skip over.
I skipped a lot of that stuff.
Parts.
But something like Noah on Super Spines or something like that, like that felt somehow relatable. Isn't that insane that here's this guy up in Alaska in the early 90s on some of the steepest terrain ever ridden.
Yeah.
On like a 156.
Yeah, but he looked like he was back in Tahoe.
Yeah.
On a sunny day, just cruising. Yeah. I mean, that's a great sign of just the level.
Yeah.
He was.
Yeah.
He was pretty adaptable, right? He just would ride everything, a pipe to Alaska.
Jumps, everything in between. Yeah, he really was that versatile, like snowboarder. Yeah. That was the thing, was like he embodied. I remember meeting him up in Vancouver at a Warren Miller film that he was in. And just like no fanfare. I remember being like, how is Noah Selaznick at the Vancouver ski show and there's not like a giant poster like meet this guy? Like it was weird. It was a weird time, and it was like M3 time for Noah.
Interesting.
Where it had sort of fizzled, I think, like had he gone on the Forum 8, would have been a completely different vibe. We'd live in a different world right now. Like that's a big enough thing.
Right.
Definitely got his due while he was doing it.
Yeah.
That Selaznick, those Sims years, he was widely celebrated, probably the best snowboarder on the planet.
Yeah.
Those opening part for TB2 or TB3, whatever it was. TB3 incredible. Maybe?
One of the parts I probably watched
TB4?
More than almost any other.
Yeah.
And tried to replicate.
With the snowmobile toe in.
Yeah.
And the back.
And like that front three, I could think of that front three. Like a little cornice.
Oh.
It was just, and his lines, it was always
lines.
The line choices was big for us around here, because it was like, we didn't have like jumps built, perfect manicured Utah jumps and things, or pipes or parks or anything. We were big mountain free riders. So it was like to ride lines like that, to be able to integrate spins into your lines and things like that was so cool for us around here.
So yeah, I've talked a lot about Peter on here, Jamie, obviously.
Yeah.
Joey is Smooth Master.
Yeah.
Todd, who that day we saw you guys hiking was one of the best days ever. That was fun.
Epic.
The one guy, or the family that I rarely talk about, Barrett, Temple, Cannon, and Matt.
Yeah.
Like Matt was this incredible staple at LibTech that was kind of like,
I think his pro model is the longest running, or was the longest running pro model.
It will be forever.
History. Yeah.
It will be forever, because nobody else is going to sponsor a little kid, give him a model, and then keep him on till he's in his 50s. It's not going to happen.
Until Cannon.
Until his
nephews.
Right, that's the truth. But the wild thing about Matt was that there wasn't a lot of Matt stuff out there. Right. Like, it was easy to look up to Craig. Sure. Craig was in every magazine. He's on the cover everywhere.
Yeah.
He's in every movie. Matt stuff, it just, like, there were more shots of Jamie on the mat than there were of Matt on the mat.
Yeah.
But it felt like that LibTech genius, where it was like,
I think that's it. I think that like family is really important to Mervin. Mm-hmm. And then, the Cummins are a perfect example of that, right? Like,
yeah, because even General Joe, their dad, had a model.
Yeah. I mean, I think priority has been for Mervin has been family and community. I mean, we were at an event at Tactics here the other day for Jamie's 30 years of Jamie Lynn, and I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. It's just like, it was just family. It was still family. This is a company that's meant so much to so many people around the world. And we've all, almost everybody knows, who's a snowboarder has some connection to this brand, and they're running it in the same manner that they've always run it. And it's like, you go to the factory and everyone there is like, feels like family, and it's just, it's beautiful to see and be a part of it in any capacity.
I'm sure there's a lot of pro snowboarders who wish they would have picked that LibTech when they could have.
Yeah.
Or GNU, just because the longevity is there. It's like you could just stay.
And the support.
And the support,
And just the way that you can communicate too. I mean, these boards are hand built by people you can talk to and be like, I want a little stiffer. I want a little this and that, and like that ability, that like rider input is what makes those boards like alive. I mean, I feel like it's almost like a living organism, right? It like melds to the snow. It does what you want it to do, but it has this like really beautiful life to it. And I have to imagine that has everything to do with the hand shaped, the hands that go into it and the minds that helped create it that are all part of this community.
Yeah. The Pete and Mike-ness of Mervin.
Pete and Mike-ness is a great way to describe it.
It's hard to quantify.
It is.
You have to kind of meet those guys and hang out, watch Pete rip. I've seen him rip at Holy Bowly where I'm like, what? This guy's so good.
Front board at, what was it? I don't want to misquote his age.
Yeah. Pete's an incredible snowboarder with a lot of passion. And then anyone who's gotten, to speak to Mike for any extended period of time, if you don't recognize there's something real special going on there, you're a weirdo. Yeah. He's awesome. Yeah.
And he'll talk to you, which is incredible, right? Like it doesn't, I've seen him just chatting with anybody about, and that's huge. I mean, again, it's like you're being able to, you're connecting to, such an integral part of how snowboards and now skis and surfboards and, skateboards as well have been made and are
it's wild.
It's pretty wild to have access to that. And that's a really
definitely coming into the show. That was
cool thing. Yeah.
That was my personal bias was like Mike Olson drew an 8-meter side cut because he was using a measuring tape and a string and going, what about 8 meters? What about 7 meters? What about 9 meters? What about 6 meters? Building them all, trying them all out, and going, at a 160 with an 8-meter side cut, we can carve this thing like so rad.
Right.
Like he did that. It wasn't the engineers at Rossignol. There was 150 engineers at Rossignol trying to figure the same thing out. They didn't figure it out.
Yeah. No, I actually have a personal experience. I rode for a company that made skis first. And they were a large company and they had an R&D department who were, I think there was, to your point, maybe 20, 25 people. And we'd all get out there and we'd talk and everything. And we'd get to the end of an R&D session with the boards where they're on snow or in their office. And like, they wouldn't really come up with anything, it was like, is this more comfortable? Is this that? But it was like, it was so fun. I just remember it was just a bunch of talking heads. Like no one was like changing anything.
And these guys are getting paid good money. They're engineers.
They're full-on engineers.
Yes. They went to school. They're like smart people.
Meanwhile, Mike Olson, right, in his basement is like creating a honeycomb for surfboards that you can now like literally check your surfboard without a bag.
Wavy side cut, like a Ginsu knife.
The magnet traction. I mean, there's so much stuff. Like, to go away from cap to like when cap, anyway.
And the banana tech, like, they didn't invent that, because there are other people that tried it that it just didn't work for them. The combination of marketing and the fact that it did work, it was like a fun thing to ride, and then everybody did it for a while, and then haters are gonna hate, and it doesn't work for everything.
Right.
It doesn't have the greatest feel for ollies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it was an innovation that came out of his mind.
Although Travis can ride those things.
Oh yeah.
Like you've never, like no one, one of the greatest, if not the greatest. And it's a beautiful thing to see a company that can tap in with their consumer and through their community build beautiful things.
It's snowboarders building snowboards.
Yeah.
And I'm
near Canada.
And the freedom that allows compared to, like you say, this is the way we've always done it. Yeah. We got 50 engineers. They work 365 days a year to make the best stuff ever. And you know what? Some of that engineered stuff, like the Rossi boards, I'll say it all day long. They were great when they were doing foam boards, especially.
I've heard this.
You could ride a 151 Rossi top to bottom at Whistler on groomers like it held the best edge. It carved the perfect pencil line, no chatter. They were unbelievably well done boards, but some genius put a corn cob on the top of it. You know what I mean? Like they were always off on some.
I just remember seeing them and visually they were hard for me to like accept.
Yeah, I understand.
I'm a very visual person.
Yeah.
But I feel like I've missed out on things in life because I look at something and I'm like, that's not great. But probably is incredible.
When you're in a thrift store and you see a corn cob board with a green Rosignol base, no matter what size it is, just get it, put bindings on it the way you like your bindings, and go take it out for a rip on groomers.
Keep an eye out for the corn cob.
Yeah, you won't even believe it. Yeah, other guys rode the Tin Man. The Tin Man was essentially the same board with a recycled top sheet and base. So that was something they were doing early on.
Forward thinking, yeah.
Yeah, they were taking the material from the cutoffs, melting it down, dyeing it black, which was dope. It was like it was the best colorway of all their stuff was the recycler. Anyways, it's we lived through and are in a really wonderful time for snowboarding.
Yeah.
Like I can't even. So we haven't even basically started on your story. Right. Are you from here, like Washington proper?
Yeah, I'm born and raised in Seattle. I was born in the Mount Baker neighborhood, which is not the mountain, but is a neighborhood in Seattle proper.
Cool.
Yeah.
It obviously has a view of Baker.
No, I don't know why they call it that.
Huh.
Yeah, it's a question I should probably ask because every time I told someone I was from Mount Baker, they would ask like, oh, cool, that's the mountain that you go snowboarding at. I would have to explain, I never made that connection. We didn't have the internet at the time, so I couldn't have Googled it. And now, I live somewhere else. So that's a good reminder to do that. But, no, so it's a neighborhood and, it's a beautiful place to grow up and started skiing when I was 2 years old, with my mom, who was always a skier and put me on skis at a super young age. And I still have the skis today, but it is my first memory and
rad.
And it was one of those things that like, I don't know if you've had this experience, but like when you're a kid, you're just bad at everything, generally. And you're just like kind of trying to figure stuff out. And then if there's something that clicks and there was something I got put on skis and I just went straight and it just felt, I have this memory. I was like, I'm maybe like 3 or 4 years old.
Wow.
Just flying down the hill at Powdered Pigs up at Snoqualmie Pass. And it was like, this is it, which I think is a great thing to be able to acknowledge at 4 years old that you have this passion now that you will.
That's incredible.
Have forever. And it wasn't until snowboarding, actually, when I was also at Snoqualmie Pass and I was about 13 years old. And the kids at school, I guess it was like in 6th or 7th grade, they were like the skateboard kids. And admittedly, I was a rollerblader up until then. So I was like, yes, as I was a skier.
Yep.
That's maybe my excuse. It was easy. Do I need an excuse to rollerblade?
No, you don't. I mean,
we can go deep into it. I mean, I did.
Now,
I participated in rollerblading, and I did have a good time. And now I roller skate often, and it's sort of a similar vibe
with the girls, with your kids,
with the kids, or with my kid and with my lady Janelle, and we have a blast at the roller skating rink. But I do always think maybe I should just throw those blades on and get a.
I love this.
Did
you do like street rollerblading?
I did.
Did that exist?
I did. Well, it was like we were just at the edge of that. Like I didn't take it.
They didn't have the special skates with all the guards and the rails.
Our
and the
skates
things
were
on
made
them,
by like Rollerblade company, and they were like black with the neon liner.
Yeah. But you were starting to do like ski tricks on your rollerblades.
Yeah, I mean, I think always I would just like to go fast.
Yeah,
and I think rollerblades for me was just another opportunity to go fast down a hill.
Sure.
And skateboarding, which I tried a couple times, was like obviously insanely hard and impossible to go super fast down a hill. I think that might have been my barrier to entry. But at about 12, 13, the cool kids in school had skateboards, or the kids, I was like, I want to be down with that posse. And I don't think they were vibing with my rollerblades. So I got a skateboard and I started to skate, and I remember spending like 4 months, it was like a summer and a month learning how to ollie in front of my house. And then when I
It's a
first
lot.
ollie. And
What was your process? Were you a grass ollie guy? Were you flat? Did you have a nice
we
flat
had
spot?
just like an intersection. It was a quiet neighborhood. So you could kind of be in the middle of the intersection where all the streets met. And it was like, sometimes like the pavement, the blacktop like changes.
Yep.
It's smoother in one section. That one area was very smooth. So it was just on that pavement every day until then the curb was there. That's the natural progression, is to try to get up the curb. And
Yep.
But then that was it. And
Over the manhole is a good one too, because
the manhole.
it feels like you're doing something, but really you're not ollieing that
you don't
high.
even have to touch the tail. I remember that.
Yeah.
The manhole.
That's right. You
It's
can
just like
do a no tail touch.
air ollie.
The ollie
Yeah.
thing, I can remember very distinctly that my friend Kari Wilcox described it as a no-handed bunny hop on a skateboard.
A no-handed bunny hop.
And I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. The physics doesn't make sense. How does the board come up? He's like, you got to click the
levitate.
tail,
Yeah.
and then you drag the foot. And remember, did you ever do the bolts backwards, where you put
No.
if you put your mounting hardware backwards, so it was sticking out on top,
It would grip onto your shoes?
rip the shit out of your shoes, but it would grip them, and you could. Some people fast track their ollie.
I've
with that.
I've never heard that before. It sounds super dangerous.
It probably was terrible.
Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, because you could land on it with your. It wasn't like your shoes were
I remember
very good.
thinking, like, if I had magnets
Magnets
in my shoes and magnets on this skateboard, this would be
Yeah, I definitely
altogether
nailed some
easier.
shoes to a board to hop around, like
trampoline.
those kind of just even with wheels on it, like trying
to
to hop
feel it.
around to be like, okay, am I
Interesting.
ollieing?
It's kind
And
of a pro tip for the kids out there learning to ollie.
don't do the shoe thing nailed to it, because I nailed them not on the kicks, just
Yeah,
on the flats,
sure.
and then I was off balance and got hurt. I
Got
think.
worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
Also, one time I put trucks on the bottom of my snowboard and went to the biggest hill that I could go on.
And strapped in.
Strapped in, full confidence. Like, this is going to go great.
We
And I got speed wobble, and I tumble turned
Yeah.
into a curb and broke my tooth off.
We are beautiful idiots.
Yeah.
I've done some really stupid stuff. That reminds me of a couple of really stupid things that I've done.
Like,
So I like jumping off of stuff into water.
mm-hmm.
I've somehow turned that into part of my current
It's unbelievable.
current
It's your job.
I
It's
don't
insane.
know.
It's
like-
great.
I was like, do you guys mind if I jump off something? And apparently
It works.
it works. People, like, you can see where people stop the videos
Yes.
on our show. And
So the
apparently a lot
jumps.
of people stop at where we're jumping off stuff, which
It's
is hilarious.
amazing.
So we get to keep doing it. But there was an abandoned bridge that we would jump off in the Arboretum here in Seattle. And my buddies were like climbers, so they always had climbing rope and stuff. I'm like, can I borrow some of that climbing rope? And I was going to try to build this rope swing in the bridge. But I essentially tried the rope to the bridge and walked back, and then just jumped off the edge of the bridge. What happened is I swung down and I swung up onto the underside of the bridge, which was substantially lower. Clearly I hadn't paid attention in physics, because I slammed into the underside of this bridge at such a high speed, and then didn't knock. I mean, I should have probably killed myself, but just like a blip came off the rope and just like fell, 30 feet to the water. It was just like a comedy of errors and so many different elements of stupidity, and also so much time for me to recognize how dumb it was, throughout that.
Of course.
That process. But if you're any friend of mine from my childhood, I'm sure you were witness to a lot of those things. But I feel like that's sort of important. I think maybe that's potentially missing in the youth today, is like, smacking a bridge.
Yeah, making those. Yeah, I can remember
those mistakes.
I can remember shooting a flaming ball out of like a can gun that we made.
Yeah.
Into a dry field of grass.
There you go.
And the whole thing just lit up. There's like six of us running over to stomp it out.
And there were 6 minds that couldn't
None of us could figure that out. I think that's where I've landed on intelligence, is that intelligence is simply a definition of intelligence that I subscribe to. It's just the ability to predict the future. That's it. That's what intelligence is.
And okay.
So we had none.
Yeah.
Between 6 of us,
Right.
none. We were so taken with the idea that we could build a shoulder-mounted can Canon that shot a ball 300 feet.
I don't like to blame everything on ADD, but there is something about hyperfocus, which has been a theme. And I think, I'm 46, 47 years old. In the second half of your life, I think it's a lot about looking back at the first half of your life and thinking like, what are these decisions that I made? What was that? Why? What were the things that led up to that decision that changed my life for better or for worse? But the ADD thing, I'm realizing a lot of it was this hyperfocus where I couldn't see. I was like tunnel vision on what and again, if you're a dear friend of mine, you've been unfortunately privy to this because you've been, I'm like, no, we're doing this thing and it's going to be, and then, you're like traipsing in the mountains in the middle of the night and just freezing. And you're like, I'm like, in my mind, this was going to be,
it's going to work.
Incredible. But anyway, that I think that when you're a kid with the ADD, I think the hyperfocus gets you into trouble, but it also gets you to experience so many things and problem solve. And then you kind of figure out that that's how you're going to problem solve for the rest of your life. And I'm still sort of living in that experience.
That's rad. Yeah, the ADD thing that I haven't revealed to you is that I got the diagnosis through a friend. Yeah. Just called me on the phone. And said, "Oh, you got this." And so then I was kind of lamenting, and I believe it was Kearns. I was saying, I got this ADD thing. And he's like, "Yeah, buddy, I talked to a doctor about that, about how accurate are those tests, right?" Yeah. And he surprised me with what he said. It was something like, "Oh, the tests are accurate." But the doctor was like, "Yeah, every adult has it right now. I have it," the doctor said. The doctor was like, "I've got it. Everyone's got it." Super interesting. So I take medication for my ADD and have for now 20 some years. And, wow. And I take it. It's a really incredible experience when you have whatever it is that's going on with my brain and you take this medication. It's not like you speed up. You're just able for the first time to like focus on one, not hyper focus, but focus on something without all the voices, like sort of all these distractions, all these different things going. You can kind of like, and there's this really lovely feeling that comes with that. And I think I watch most people generally have it. Sounds very Zen.
It is sort of Zen, and you can tell when like, if someone's like, "Oh, you have that medication, let me try it." And they're like, Zzz, and you're like, "Oh, you don't have ADD." And
because it does the opposite. It speeds you up.
And I think that's like a kind of a common thing, but I've seen it real time and it's definitely a real thing. But the gal that prescribes it to me, is in Seattle in the network that I'm in. There's only like one person that could prescribe it. You have to have all these,
wild.
I think it's like what do they call it? Like a controlled substance, or there's all these rules and regulations and things. So there's this one gal and she's great. She's this 70-year-old endurance runner, really interesting doc. But she is theorized to me as she's like, we're going through it and she's like, "Yeah, you have the symptoms and stuff that she's theorized that all adults who think they have ADD are, they don't have ADD and they're just, because of the distractions that exist in our world now with the phones and you imagine family and work and phones and computers and screens, everything, you have a hard time focusing. And it makes perfect sense. We've sort of like created ADD brain for ourselves.
That makes sense.
And you think about phones, right? Like you're just like, "Oh, interesting. As you scroll through things or whatever it is, it's like you're never focusing on anything for more than a few seconds. And so it's sort of
and the variety of things are so insane.
Right. So
that right now you're watching someone potentially dying, falling down a mountain in one of those inflatable balls. You're like, "Wait, whoa, that got dark fast." Oh, a kitten, cute. Oh my God, look at that baby. Like it just goes from like the most insane shit to the least insane shit and everything in between. I am realizing I probably don't have ADD because I can't even drink a coffee without my wife being able to tell I had a coffee 10 hours later.
Oh, wow.
So
super
like
sensitive.
It does allow me to hyper focus though. Like when I was working at the post office, if I had a coffee, I could get what would take me 2 hours of work done in 20 minutes.
Right.
Could just bang.
Yeah, that was my first experience, was at a job. But the last thing I'll say about the dock is that so all of that distraction isn't the ADD, but it's the fatigue associated with all that distraction. So people come to her and they'll be like, I can't focus. My brain won't focus on anything. It's like, because now you have to sit at a job and write a long email or whatever it is, and you're so fatigued from the distraction that it feels as though you can't focus.
Yeah, because I definitely have that at the end of the day, lots of times.
But I was actually, as a child, I was told I was early enough in that world where it was like Ritalin or nothing.
Yeah.
You know, and they were like, it was strong, and it was like messing with kids. Like you could just see kids like zombie out. And so my parents said, we went and got the test. You got the ADD. Do you want to take this medication? It's up to you. And I was, I don't know, rebellious or whatever. I don't need the medication.
That's actually really smart and sweet that your parents did that.
That was very smart and sweet. I don't know if it was smart, because that was when I was about 12, 13.
Yeah.
Fast forward 10 years, and I'm sitting down at my first like office job in New York City, and I've got a pile of orders I've got to input into a computer. I literally can't do it. My brain doesn't do it. I just blur out. So I go to this doc and I say, hey, I think my ADD is making it like really hard for me to do this job. And he goes, okay, you know, you can try the medication and see if it works. I popped a pill the next day, go to work. I literally burned through that thing of paperwork in like an hour, faster than any of the other people were doing it or whatever. And there was this moment where I realized my entire life would have potentially been a little bit easier, because school was obviously quite difficult.
Right.
And I'm very happy with the way my trajectory,
me too.
Turned out. Like,
if there's no Josh Rosen snowboarder, and then there's no Josh Rosen dirt, and we don't have that day in that half pipe and the conversation on the thing, I'm a different person, because I was so blown away by the fact that your dad was a civil rights lawyer and activist, right?
Yeah.
During the,
I mean, I think his activism was him being
the lawyer,
being an attorney.
Yeah.
I think that he
was in New York at that time, though.
Well,
is that right? Or is that out here?
He started working for the American Civil Liberties Union in New York City in 1965. I think I got that right. Around then, and then got the opportunity to move to Seattle to run Washington State for the American Civil Liberties.
So that's ACLU.
ACLU.
Unreal.
Yeah. So it's during the civil rights movement.
That's huge.
It's a really important position and role, and it was really cool for him, because it kind of cemented him in this town as an activist, as someone who was here to help people whose civil liberties had been challenged in any way. And also an incredible part of the ACLU, anybody's civil liberties, not just African Americans at the time. It was like, I remember hearing my dad say that at some point he defended someone from the KKK, because that person's civil liberties had been attacked. And so, you know, it's a pretty incredible organization in that way. I think it is generally more thought of now as, I don't know. It seems like a more on the liberal side of things. But as an organization during that time, it was a pretty incredible thing.
And it was like, we're talking boots on the ground activism.
Absolutely.
Time.
Yeah. That's
when things are moving in a very distinct way. You know, it's not like today where there's just so much information overload. There were, in my imagining, there were, you know, distinct problems being solved by direct action.
Sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
And
it was focused. I mean, that's a really good way of thinking about it. It's like you just weren't distracted, right? You had something that a problem that you had to solve, and you went directly at it. And I remember just like he was just spending hours on the phone, and meeting with people and traveling and meeting with people, because that's how you communicated. But a lot was changed. And then he went on, from that to do another really incredible thing, which was to extend, the statute of limitations, which is generally 6 months for most things, right? So if I crash my car into you, you have 6 months to sue me or whatever it is. That's statute of limitations. But for rape and molestation victims, it was 6 months.
Oof.
A lot of people who are raped or molested don't
I'm not going to say
acknowledge
shit.
that this thing has happened to them till they're many, many years later.
Yeah.
So he was able to change it from 6 months to 18 years.
Oh, wow.
So that was a huge, I mean,
thank you. That's dope.
A big
for the world. Yeah.
For our country, which was really, really incredible. But that, yeah. And it, a great man, no longer with us, Michael Rosen, but a really incredible fighter for justice. Also, actually, interestingly enough, became when I came along and my sister came along and my brother went into practice defending marijuana offenses. So he was a drug defense attorney.
Damn.
Yeah, and it was sort of funny because it was, he helped a lot of my friends, big and small cases, but it was really cool. He had died, but when marijuana became legal in Washington State, and which was what he was fighting for, he didn't believe it was a crime. And when Obama was president, it was a cool moment, right, in time where you're like, those things you fought for are happening. And
I remember feeling really surprised as someone living in BC, that it was recreationally legal in Washington State. Like, it just felt like, what are you talking about? Yeah. Isn't it like if we got caught with rolling papers in our car on the way down here, there was a chance they were going to take the car or something. Sure. It felt like there's no way. And then when it happened, I remember hearing lots of cool things like that. They had brought it in, legalization, with about a 55% approval rate. Yeah. So they based all their numbers of what they're going to sell on about 55% of the population of adults wanting access to marijuana. Well, they were just selling out like crazy. They couldn't keep up with the demand because it turns out, the 45% of people that were like, no, we're not going to do marijuana. Right. When it was legal, they're like, fuck, it's legal. We may as well. Like, there's no more, there was nobody against them.
There was a great time in Seattle. I remember going to the dispensaries where like there were the potheads, right? They were the first ones in line. Sure. So psyched, man. They're going to buy their weed from a store or whatever.
Legal, man.
And then over time, there would be like the mom, the like soccer mom. Yep. She was like kind of nervous. I remember it was cool to watch, and then and then everyone getting stoned and being like, oh, this is like mellower than a martini. It's mellower than a beer. It's like, and then we got different kinds for you. You want the light stuff, you want this or whatever. And
it really blossomed quickly here. Yeah. Like it really went from being like fully illegal to being like, we're down at the lake and there's people just smoking joints. I was like, I'm in cuckoo town. Like I'm for marijuana laws being like lifted. Like it should be legal everywhere. But I was just like, wow, this is,
I think it was pretty startling. It was still startling.
That's what it was.
You just sort of felt like it was just going to be that way forever because that was our childhood where it was like, you didn't know.
I still have friends that like don't want to smoke in public.
Right.
That are like, should we put a towel down and go in the bathroom? I'm like, are you fucking kidding? It's completely legal in this whole country. Yeah. We don't have to hide.
Well, not quite.
Well, in our country it is.
Oh, you're right. We're from different countries. I forgot that.
In Canada, it's
I didn't know it was province-wide. It was all the provinces.
Federally.
Federally legal. You got federally
So they put it in federally.
Beautiful.
And for recreational. And so each province has their own set of laws. 18 here, 19 there. Huh. Yeah, it's nuts, dude. It's nuts.
Oh, and it's 18 for you guys.
Some places.
Interesting.
Yeah, some places like Alberta
I
or
guess
somewhere.
You may as well mirror the
or
liquor.
Quebec. Yeah. And that's who runs it.
The liquor board does.
Yeah, so it started like they were telling people. I have a friend that was working at the liquor board at the liquor store.
Yeah.
And they're like, we're going to pay you a premium if you take this marijuana job. But by the way, when you travel into the States, you might be fucked. Like you might just not be able to ever go to the States, right? Because if they ask you at the border, what's your job?
Yeah.
And you tell them, well, I work in federal marijuana. We can't
protect you.
There's nothing we can do about it.
Interesting.
Down there.
Yeah.
Because for you guys, federally not legal.
Not legal.
So state to state, they make their own choices. But if the feds in your state decide they want to bust you, they still got you, right? Whereas in Canada, unless you're under 18 or if you're getting your weed from some weird place, organically grown by some pot nerd that's amazing. And even then, I haven't heard of anyone getting busted for weed.
Yeah. We have a weird border between Canada and the U.S. in terms of the scrutiny that you get going across.
So strange.
Do you travel around the world and they don't bat an eye? I don't know if you've traveled recently, but I feel like even almost all customs have just feel loose. I don't know. Maybe it's just my experience. But quick, a couple questions, right?
Oh, yeah.
You come across the border. I mean, you have the experience today. It's insane.
Yeah, they're going nuts.
They really don't want you to go for some reason from the Canada to the U.S. or back.
Well, I found out working at Canada Post that Canada's on the suspicious country list now for parcels everywhere around the world.
Oh, interesting.
Because it's federally legal to buy weed. So people just put it in a box and send it to their friend.
Send it away. Interesting.
So it's like those boxes are now no longer, the stuff coming from Canada is now under way more scrutiny because of our pot laws, right? It's crazy.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, but definitely coming into the States, I've had every version of the experience from like go across with no ID, make sure you bring it next time,
right?
To, no, you're not allowed in our country, which that was a terrible one, to, we found weed in your car, idiot.
Yeah.
Like you're crossing an international border. Be more careful next time. Go ahead.
That's lucky.
I was like, what? Yeah. Okay. Yes, sir.
You don't want to be on that list.
Don't want to be on that list at all. Yeah, definitely don't want to be on that list. I came down today and they pulled me over for a better part of an hour. And it's interesting because they're just trying to follow the law.
Sure.
That's the thing. And they're like, why are you going down? I'm like, to do a podcast.
Yeah.
They're like, what's your job? I'm like, I'm a podcaster.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, go inside.
Yeah, that's nice of you to be honest.
Well, I have to because I don't have any more chances. You know what I mean? Like if I get,
gotcha.
I got turned away one time because I was trying to hop the border. I went through the Nexus lane. I was such an idiot. I'm like, I have a flight to catch. They're like, you think there's not other people in that line that have flights to catch?
Sure.
What's your deal, dude? And I was like, oh God, I wasn't thinking. So like one more of those.
That's a tick against
you.
So
I'm just like straightforward, 100% honest. If you can't let me into your country, then I don't want to come into your country.
Got it.
Like if what I'm doing is against the law, I'm not going down. But
I've just recently had this experience of traveling around the world
because
with
you have all your
giant
stuff.
Pelican cases and all the stuff that comes with that. But there's like,
so there's an I visa, and I don't even have to apply for it. It's an information visa, interviewer visa, something. I wrote it down.
And then you're good.
As long as you don't live feed, and as long as you don't do any work down in the States, you get your interview. You bring it back up to Canada. You produce your shit there.
Weird.
So
like
that's what I'm doing.
Strange little sub laws to.
Oh, it's also, guess what language they were using? It's under. You're doing a blog.
Oh,
I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm blogging.
Nice.
I'm a blogger.
This is the bloggers lounge.
Yes, I'm a blogger of electronic blogging.
Well, congratulations on your new occupation.
But they sat and watched some of the shows. Guy came back and said, oh man, it makes me realize I got to go snowboarding, man. I haven't gone in 2 years since I had my kids.
That's cool.
Yeah. There, and then even when I was going out, the guy's like, what podcast? I'm like, FNRad. He goes,
nice.
He was,
I was hoping for something else.
Famous podcaster guy. I'm like, I'm not famous podcaster guy. I just got pulled over for podcast.
There was almost a glimpse of something for that guy's day to be just a little bit better. If you recognize
what podcast would he have been Oh, Joe Rogan or something.
Yeah, he was hoping you were
Definitely. Who is it? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What are your podcasts? You listen to podcasts?
Oh yeah, I love a podcast. I drive to go snowboarding 2 hours each way almost daily on during the season. So
wow.
The Beastie Boys producer, whose name I
love him.
Help me.
I can see his face.
I can look.
He was a Beastie Boy at one point.
His name is.
He's a
Rick Rubin.
Rick
I don't
Rubin.
know why I can't ever remember Rick Rubin. Anyway,
yeah,
important. So he's fantastic.
I've listened to his podcast. It's great.
It's really good.
It's really good.
And what I really like, the Neil deGrasse Tyson podcast, which is like something of the stars, is
I haven't listened to it, but
fantastic.
Yeah, I can imagine. He's a real vibrant character.
I really enjoy though when like sort of pop culture or like a Rick Rubin or something interviews a scientist, or it sort of feels like elevated layman interviewing a science person.
I've started to get sick of the Joe Rogan thing because he is not objective.
He was for a really long time, and you know, I think being indoctrinated is that's a relative thing, I guess. But I mean, he's a passionate person,
yes,
I think, and he's got his convictions and his feelings. But I think this last election, we definitely shouldn't talk about politics, but it like really revved people up.
Yeah.
People got really passionate in a way that they hadn't potentially before.
The Rogan thing that just, and I've unsubscribed from his podcast several times in the past. I can't remember why. Yeah. But I think it's always the same energy. It's like when someone does a skateboard or a snowboard culture piece in popular media. Yeah. Right. Like Joe Rogan interviewing Tony Hawk, like he comes at him hard with like, so when are they gonna like make an electric skateboard or a hoverboard? And I'm like, right, okay, this is where he sucks. Yeah. It's like he's got his own kind of like brain on things. Like he does, and he just went on a rant about indigenous people, where he was like, they were warring each other. What are you going to do? Give them back property? They don't know who owns anything. And I'm like, okay, dude, it's not about property ownership. It's so lame that you're saying it this way. Like,
that's the argument I hear a lot, is that he says a lot of off the cuff, not at all thoughtful or fact based things, and insensitive, and insensitive, and his audience is so big, and then he has a responsibility with an audience that big, at least to do some fact checking and or be a little more cautious.
He's done it in the past where he said, "Look, I was stupid." That's
and he goes back, and he does go back, and I find it. I don't want to defend Joe Rogan, but I do listen to Joe Rogan a bit. There's when he's interviewed, there's certain people that he's interviewed that I find super interesting. A lot of biohacking stuff I think is as a 45,
the first
6-year-old
dude with the implant for the brain thing. Whoa, that was wild.
It's wild. That's the extreme.
Yeah.
I'm thinking my biohacking interests are more in diet and in exercise, and
so he's got a lot of good information
and mobility
people on
training
there.
And that sort of
Dr.
stuff.
Patrick and all those people.
Totally.
Like it's and his progressive thoughts on drugs are really cool. That's probably why I did all that DMT. In fact, I'm certain that's why I had the like drive to like check it out and try it out. And then when I got there, I was like, oh, wow, this is way crazier.
He does a good job of describing experience.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important piece for a podcast or podcaster to embody the ability to like, and also I will say of Joe Rogan, he does a great job of extracting a lot of core information.
The meat and potatoes. Yeah.
Meat and potatoes. And it's
just when he's flying too loose with buddies. And they're talking about things that are important. You can tell, right? He's had a couple of whiskeys. And And I just really wanted to shout at one point because I don't even know why this is all cut. I've got a buddy whose son is trans. Yeah. And the characterization of trans women as perverted men that just want to go into women's bathrooms, and children who are trans as gender difference deniers. Those two things, I don't see those in the real world. I just that's not those
it's
sound.
the point at which people note extremes as commonplace, which is really tough. But it seems
triggering extremes.
Super and it's interesting because I think if he would hope of himself that he's not that, right? That he's some more moderate across the board and is giving more of a perspective from both sides. Or I think he would hope for that of himself. But I hear what you're saying.
It feels like he just doesn't have a trans buddy that's like the real deal, right? Yeah. Like that's someone like that Will Ferrell documentary where you're just like, that's real.
Super thoughtful.
It's thoughtful. It's difficult. It's not easy. It's not an easy thing that someone's choosing. It's
the hardest.
And it's gnawing. It's gnawing at them, right? In that Will Ferrell one, my favorite moment for me, because I'm looking for those little moments that go, this is the humanity of it. Where the one trans woman's talking about the first day of kindergarten, and they're like, okay, line up for the bathrooms. And at that point, they're a little boy, and she's like, gets in the girl lineup, and the teacher's like, oh no, honey, like, what the hell's going on here? Like, you're confused. Like, so how can you be mad at a 5-year-old? You know what I mean? Or how could you think this kid's making it up or whatever? There's something there that needs to be addressed as a society in a compassionate way.
I mean, I think the entire LGBTQ community has experienced that from such a young age. I'm really close to a lot of one of my closest friends, Timmy. I'm going to out Timmy here on this podcast. He's been gay for a long time, but I lived in New York for many years, and he and I became very, very close friends. And I spent a lot of time in and around that community, and it was like a universal story of childhood, which was being told you are wrong, and that what you are, who you are, is wrong.
That's the whole reason for the pride thing. Be proud of who you are, right?
Regardless of your opinion on the manner in which people present themselves to the world, or however they need to be heard or listened to or felt or whatever, and how that might somehow interrupt the manner in which you like to live your life, right? With bathrooms or whatever it is.
Sure.
Which seems sort of silly. It's a fundamental, basic right that everyone feel okay in their skin as a fucking child.
Especially as a child.
You talk about formative years.
Especially as a child.
Right? And what that does to you.
If they're in your care and you're in charge of a child's well-being, you need, like, they definitely need to be supported. It's insane.
Absolutely.
I think, the bathroom thing, I was like, why do we even have gendered bathrooms? It should just be a sign that shows there's a toilet for shitting and a urinal for pissing. This is all it's a place to sit and shit or stand and piss, up to you. That's the sign. Yeah. Go in. Right. But I guess, I mean, I'm being naive. Safety issues you don't want to have. But each one should be one. Why would you put more than one toilet in the same room? Right. I don't want to shit beside anyone, whether they're a girl or a boy or anyone. I just want to be by myself. Yeah. Privately. That's the whole point.
I think it's a fear, and then a fear of an unknown or something that's uncommon or uncomfortable for them.
Yes.
And then and instead of an understand, like, empathy is a much harder emotion to access than anger from fear, right? So anger is real easy.
So
that's
close.
What triggering is, right? You're just like,
so close.
And it's just, you immediately put up this barrier so that you don't have to deal with that thing, or you're angry at this thing. This fear is this immediate emotion. Empathy takes a minute. We're having that conversation about the book that it's right next to you, so I can read it. It's called
It's like communication.
Nonviolent communication. Yeah. And it's essentially about taking the time when you experience that anger to empathize with the person that you're angry at. Right. And understand.
I just had a visceral feeling of like stepping on a Lego, right? And how difficult it is.
Great example.
To be because that's benign, right? I know, and now I don't even have kids in the house. I step on something, I'm instantly like, children, like I'm like mad, even though, you know what I mean? Like you go straight to anger. Like, who has done this to me?
Right.
As opposed to,
as though your 3-year-old child who's contemplated hurting you and putting that leg right.
It's unreal that we are so off on the basis of our discomfort.
Yeah.
Because the first thing is outside. It's an outside of you thing.
Yeah.
Right? I experienced a lot of self-inflicted pain, and it was like this way to control it. You know what I mean? And it's a completely different thing than that surprising, sharp pain of the outside world reminding you that, hey, there are dangerous things out there. Is that a scorpion? Oh, no. It was just a Lego brick.
Yeah, it's this innate thing in us, right?
Yeah.
That's supposed to trigger us to like get away from that thing.
Run
whatever
in some
it is.
direction, right?
Right, and we've now
and swinging. You're also turning around to swing at that thing, but like it doesn't serve you very well when the antagonist is a piece of Lego, and the person that left it there's 3 years old, right? You don't want to go kick your kid.
But a perfect example,
right?
Of leading with anger as opposed to empathy, and it's difficult, but.
And is it and doesn't it serve a purpose on some level? Like you need some form of anger, because I think telling our kids that anger, and I was told this as a child on some levels, that being angry is inappropriate. But I've only recently, with my absolutely wonderful wife now, who is just the absolute number one support for me growing, I've only with her as the first person I've ever argued with where I said, no, you know what? I am angry. This is an appropriate time to be angry. If I was angry when we were at Disneyland or something, that would be weird. But something that angers me just happened, and so I'm angry.
Yeah, that space is really important.
Yeah.
That safe space with your partner or whomever, or your friends, to be angry.
Yeah.
And also to have the opportunity to experience anger with resolution, right? To like, that's the only way to kind of process and pass through. Otherwise you end up sort of being angry all the time. So surrounding yourself by people that understand that is really important. Here's a doozy. Repressing anger in your children, potentially leads to physical problems for those children as they get older. And I'll explain.
I love it.
This journey that I went on with my back pain. So from about 21, 22 years old, I was experiencing sort of chronic back pain, which many people, it's like one of the largest hospitals, like is like back pain is like one of the biggest reasons people go to the hospital. It's that thing where you bend over to pick up a pencil, right? And your back seizes up. Yeah. You don't know why. But in your mind, you think, well, maybe it's because I crashed my snowboard 400 times, 400 times when I was a kid, and I hurt my back, and it's this. And your brain sort of makes up these reasons why this thing exists. And actually that perpetuates the pain, because what your body does is it seizes up. It sort of like protects that area. And when it does that, it doesn't allow blood to flow to that area. And then that's when that swelling occurs, and you experience that feeling of nerve pain. So this good doctor, Dr. John Sarno, wrote a book.
I love it. I love the Sarno thing.
Are you onto the Sarno?
I had back pain that I thought my way out of just on the principle of that book. I just looked at the book. Yeah. I saw the premise.
I love sharing this because it's there's so many people that experience this back pain. And if you have experienced it, you know it is debilitating in the most brutal way.
The worst way.
Right? Where you literally, your core, your thing that is responsible for almost every movement that you make is out, and you are just done, and everything hurts, and it takes weeks. It's just this miserable situation. But apparently, Dr. Sarno, and I believe it wholeheartedly after
me too,
not having back pain now for the last 17 years, is that when you're a kid, you're constantly being repressed with your rage, which we all, if you have a kid, or if you've been on an airplane with a kid and see parents are calm down, calm down. And what you're experiencing is all these emotions kind of going through your body, you're experiencing these emotions in your mind, but when you are experiencing emotions, they are experiencing in your entire central nervous system, right? Which is sending signals up and down. Like when I poke myself in the finger, that's my brain has to go up to my brain. It says, oh, something poked you in your brain, and you go, ouch. And then you feel it in the finger, right?
Totally.
So you're constantly sending signals from your brain throughout your body. Well, when you're repressing rage, you're creating this like blockage essentially in those signals being sent throughout your body. And one of the places where it exists the most is down in your spine and your lower back. And also apparently all through your back, but the majority apparently is in the lower back. And then if you recognize that that's what's happening, that's what's causing the back pain, is this repressed rage that you had from a kid that is built up in your lower back, and you understand that it's emotional and not physical, it goes away.
It goes away.
And it's
miraculously.
I have expressed this to hundreds of people. I have the book in my bookshelf here. I actually bought like 8 of them.
What's the John Sarno? It's Dr. John Sarno.
Dr. John Sarno, Healing Back Pain.
Healing Back Pain. It's simple.
And if you go down that rabbit hole, there's a whole world that has spawned from that.
Back pain, right? Yeah. Because there was like they were fusing people's things back together, and
Sarno for 35 years was a back surgeon, and it was some like 7,000 surgeries. But the problem was these people would come back with the exact same. He would fuse their spine. He would shave down the discs. He would do all of these things that were supposed to relieve pressure, and they would come back with the exact same pain. And the other thing is that an MRI with a healthy person's back would look exactly like the MRI from the guy
that was the crazy thing,
completely seized up.
Yeah.
The other piece is that back pain, for the most part, exists between people who are 25 to 55. Those are the most the years where you are building, getting a home together, getting your career together, having children, all of these things, really stressful time.
All the stress.
After 55, it drops off.
Oh, wow. What?
Before
really?
25, it almost doesn't exist, but it's the time when you are the most stressed out. There's all of these things pointing to it. So for your listeners, if you have any questions,
it's really cool that I was hoping it was John Sarno, because I'm like, I've had that experience myself where I've just thought myself out of like terrible back knots. Yeah. Being like, this book makes sense.
It's the brain body connection is a really interesting one. And another, doctors are for the mind or doctors are for the body. There's not there's few that connect the two. That's naturopaths do to some degree, which is great. And shout out to Hans Jagard, my naturopath, who has done amazing things for me.
Sick.
But the connection between our brain and our bodies is something we don't know anything about, really, for the most part.
That's why it's
so important.
That's why medicine's so good at certain things, like fixing a broken leg. Right. They're awesome at it. Yeah. Because there's no part of the broken leg that is all in your mind. Right. Right? Your leg's fucking broken. They need to fix it.
Sure.
But we need to have a more holistic approach.
Absolutely.
I think we're going to get this again to come back to AI. If you're playing podcast bingo, take another drink or whatever the fuck it is. I think those like case studies, because that's how we've been doing science, right? Like someone that had these symptoms, the most people like them responded to this treatment.
Right.
And that's one of the things about drugs that always drove me fucking nuts.
Right.
The efficacy of like anti-stress, anti-anxiety pills, the efficacy is like 50-50 or something.
Right.
And that's one that I need to fact check, because if you're on antidepressants and they're helping you stay on antidepressants, that's great that they're helping you. And I had to get away from being such a pro-psychedelic person because it's not a cure-all for anything.
I think of psychedelics sort of as like a shortcut, and those almost never work long-term.
Yeah, right? Sure.
Shortcuts are like, the medical field does it all day long, right? It's like you have this pain, cool, here's this pill, now you don't have that pain anymore.
Right.
But the problem isn't gone. You've just... and I go to the drugstore to get my Adderall or whatever, and I see folks in line getting so many different prescriptions, and they are generally physically I don't know their life. I don't know what people are up to, but they seem to be very comfortable being treated, for the pain and not for the idea of being healthy.
Terry was the first one to say it to me. I guess I've lived a sheltered life, but it was a really cool concept to hear him say he doesn't take painkillers because then his body won't know where to send the healing.
Right.
I was like, oh shit, damn, no, your body's going to heal on its own. And I've had surgery without anesthesia for the dental thing now, and it feels the same.
Well, that's
minus the
I've not
crazy
heard that.
needle that goes in your face that hurts.
Which is arguably
and then there's this, you don't have that.
So you're getting oral work done without anesthesia at all.
And your dentist will tell you, but we might hit a nerve and that'll really hurt. And you go, okay, well, fuck, it really hurts when you jab me with that thing and when I bite my cheek like this.
Huh.
So there's a guarantee that it's going to hurt and it might hurt without it. Okay, I'll take the might hurt one.
Yeah.
And so far it hasn't hurt. Now, if you're a listener and you listen to that and it hurts like crazy, please reach out and tell me I'm an insane person and to not say that anymore.
No, I like that. I fucking hate that needle. That thing's
it's the worst part of dental work is the needle. The needle is the worst, and you can do the stuff without it, and it doesn't hurt. Like, it didn't hurt at all.
It'd be nice to have an option, if nothing else, right? If they could say, like, look, we've got this numbing cream that's 100% natural that you put on and nettles or something like that.
But the main thing, like you were saying, is like, the body-mind thing, they're completely inseparable.
Yeah.
So you can't really treat anything without treating both.
Right. Absolutely.
Effectively.
I mean,
efficacy.
one of the things he points out too, which is great, is like there's a lot of physical ailments that exist. Like shingles is a good example. Shingles is a physical manifestation of emotional pain. It comes from anxiety. It comes from stress. You get shingles, right? So we know the medical world agrees that these things exist. They're just not willing to say that it's back pain because they don't know, AKA, and I don't want to, you can only imagine the amount of money that is made around
because
this back pain.
You are so desperate.
That is exactly
you are
it.
So desperate.
The desperation will lead
anything.
you to do.
Give me fucking sleeping pills so I could just be alive.
I don't take
tomorrow.
Medication like you were saying. Because me and Terry are pretty much the same person.
Same style.
Yeah, right. I wish. I don't take like any pain pills for things for the most part because I don't like being dopey. It just doesn't feel good to me, which I feel very fortunate that that's the result that I get from that. But I will take it. Or I did take it for my back because, to your point, it would push me to that space. And if you are in that space, you should really, really look to this. And I feel like you can reach. Another thing is like it's nice to talk to somebody that's been through it.
Yeah.
If you're listening and you're experiencing back pain and you have questions, I'm happy to answer because after you read the book, there's a lot of questions that I had, and I luckily had a friend who had recommended the book, so he and I talked about it, and that was really helpful because it was concepts that are sort of hard to digest initially. Because we are told, since we are little, and that like if you get injured and you're sore or from that injury, you should stretch, you should do physical therapy, you should do yoga, you should go to a chiropractor, all of these things, and all of those things are reinforcing in your lower back pain that there is a physical problem. So it's this crazy thing after stretching and going to yoga and doing all these things my whole life that the doctor says, and he was right, that none of those things may alleviate the pain for a moment, but you're not actually
we're leaving money on the table here. Yeah. What is there a developed economics of psychological back pain treatment, like where you go in and you just get
my friend
therapy
and
for
Daryl
that? Where the guy's like, okay, think about your dad, or think about this. Think of, you're really angry. Okay, calm down.
My friend Daryl now and I, who Daryl now is the one that gave me the book. Yeah. I actually got the book 4 times before I read it.
That's incredible.
My mom gave it to me. Daryl gave it to me. And my girlfriend at the time gave it to me. One other person, because they would see me laying on the floor for a week with my legs up, wincing in pain, and they were like looking for me for anything that might help the problem. And so Daryl was the one that gave me the book and just sat me down. He's like, just read it and we'll talk about it. And Daryl is an ex-BMX pro.
Sick. And
super pro, legend in that world. And, I'm a minor snowboard bro from my teen years. And so we were like, well, there needs to be a world where we can express this information to people in our industries, but also beyond, because Sarno's, he's passed now, but he was in his 80s, and like he had these great videos where he was talking to an audience. It was like Sally Jesse Raphael style.
Long ago.
Did you see these things? It's really funny. And he's like, they're asking him questions and going back and forth, but it's not really relatable to a younger group. And we talked about, start a clinic or something.
Just taking it out of the realm of where the person with the back pain has to do anything, right? Like, because that's what chiropractors, doctors, and the pills do, is that you just go, oh man, I have to take care of this Wednesday. Then you go Wednesday and he goes click, 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 and then you feel better, right? Yeah. So for some people, that's enough because psychologically they're like, oh, I just need to go see my guy again and he'll do it.
But everyone's heard this. Oh, my chiropractor, he's the best. He's this miracle worker or whatever. I go in there and I feel better. With all due respect to chiropractors, I have never known anyone to be healed of their ailment from the chiropractor. It's just a relief of pain, which is fantastic if that's what you need. But I think my experience of chiropractors is that they will tell you they're going to heal you. And I
seem to remember them saying that you need to come back. You need to come back tomorrow. And then if you come back when they say,
really bad. I'm trying to
eventually,
think if I know any chiropractors I'm going to insult.
I do. My buddy Jay Renix, I love the guy. He's a great person and he's probably the best chiropractor out there. I just remember feeling like it's a racket.
I feel like I was at a fucking gym and they were going to give me a free duffel bag if I signed up for enough sessions with the chiropractor.
But every time dentists are like that too, though. That's the thing. It's like, how did the dentists get so every 6 months you have to be there?
Yeah.
It's insane.
Hey, Gil, do you remember The Simpsons?
Yes.
Gil, the salesman. He's like, just that one sale. I just, come on, just buy this one. Is this that energy? It's just like, anyway.
Hey, can we have your permission to call you and harass you at 6 months and for you and all of your family every 6 months that you have to come in and do this painful shit?
No offense also to chiropractors. And if you're experiencing relief to your point,
do it. We don't want to fuck anybody up on that. But I think to have a business where the person, so I pitched this and my wife was on board until she wasn't.
Sure.
I'm like, put teenagers in white lab coats, have a store that says on the sign, placebo, right? You go in and these kids are young and this is their job.
Yeah.
So they listen to you. You say, oh, my back hurts like this. And
they just give you the same pill.
And they go in the back and they print out a label and they put it in a prescription bottle and they give you the sugar pills.
Right.
And they put it and they go, this works miracles for what you just said. And then you open it and it says take one a day.
Yeah.
With food. And I bet it would work as
people would feel relief.
Right. And plus you'd be able to sell a 2-penny sugar pill for $1. And just, and big disclaimers everywhere. These are not health professionals. This is not real.
I mean,
this
if anything,
placebo.
An art installation.
Yeah.
It sounds like something that would be at like
I think people would swear by it. I think people would say, oh my God, I swear by this shit.
Yeah. It's
sleeping pills.
Persuasion. The power of persuasion is pretty incredible.
Yeah, but those don't have anything in them. Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have sugar.
It's like when you get hypnotized. Have you ever had hypnosis? I've
always been very, very skeptical of it, but I've heard people that I believe had an experience that it worked.
Isn't that strange?
To make them, hump a chair. No, to hump a chair.
Yeah.
Like, why would this girl have made a fool of herself in front of this sex hypnotist?
Right.
If it wasn't real. I'm looking like, was it real? Is that real?
One of those gray sciences.
Yeah. Well, the Radiolab has a hypnotism thing where the guy had like some incurable growth on his whole arm. Something that's never been cured ever. Not once in science has it ever been cured. And the guy had just taken up hypnotism. He's like, Timmy, I'm going to try and hypnotize you. And the guy's like, sure, we'll see. And it worked. It went away. It's documented. Fully went away. First time ever that this has been cured.
That's worth
And they were like, it's incurable. It's no way.
Yeah.
and he never could replicate it. He never found another patient that it worked on. People came from all over the world to get hypnotized. That might have been the day
he ran out of the soap that was...
Sure, it was like the one time that it worked.
Yeah.
But also under allergies, this is in that same space. Dr. Andrew Weil had a terrible cat allergy that he had a mega dose of acid.
Sure.
Cat jumped on his lap. He had this reaction of like, oh no. And then he, in his body, was like able to not have an allergic reaction. And he's not been allergic to cats since.
Don't tell my girlfriend Janelle that, because she would really like a cat, and I'm deathly allergic. If there's any shortcut to a cat. So people who are allergic to roses are also allergic to plastic roses. Just to know,
it's like
it's a placebo
it's a very specific thing. And according to Weil in the same book, sunburn is the same procedure. So I didn't get sunburns when I was a kid at all. And now I get them terribly, but that you can think your way out of getting sunburns.
I find that interesting. It's also interesting that like sunscreen didn't like exist until very recently.
Yeah. What is
and we're just like, we're like our children at the beach, just got to cover, like smother them in this.
It works, but what is it? Yeah. I don't even know what it is.
But also like it didn't exist till like very recently. But we now put it on ourselves like it's, if we don't, we're just going to like burst into flames.
Yeah, it's so wild, isn't it? I mean, the miracles of modern science, the things that they figured out, like that you can put a cream on and then all the hair falls off. That's weird that we spent time on that.
I should probably get my dog to stop dropping the ball.
Oh, I can hear it, but we won't be able to hear it.
You won't pick it up?
No.
Really?
These are pretty directional.
Okay. You let me know. I can.
Yeah, I actually... All right, bingo players. AI takes out all the stuff like that and does an incredible job with it. It's unbelievable. We should probably hit some snowboarding stuff.
Yeah.
So is your first sponsor the shop that you were talking about?
So U-Skate, I was sponsored by U-Skate that was my first shop sponsor. And where I met my best friend, Tyson Shaney, who now lives a few doors down. And we've been best friends since we were 12 or 13. And I think a lot of motivators in my life was like seeing people and being like, that is really a beautiful expression of life. And Tyson, when I first met him, just he had, it's funny because if you say it now, it sounds funny. He had these dreadlocks. He was a white guy with dreadlocks.
Yep.
But he did it really, it's like hard to...
Dude, they looked good for some people.
Man, can I tell you that this on him, I wish I could, we could show a picture. It looked so cool on him.
Yeah.
And it's funny because even saying it out loud, it sounds funny in this world that we live in now.
Steve Floyd, dude, my buddy with dreadlocks. I met him at Tim Wendell's.
Yeah.
I really looked up to that.
Yeah.
I tried to do them. They did not look good
Funny,
on me.
I did too. I had curly hair and it was like, they were like poopy looking. They looked like little pieces of poop coming down my head.
Not good.
Not a good time. Not a good era for my hair. But anyway, sorry. So U-Skate, this was like 91, 92. And went in there and the vibe was cool. The energy in that place was so good. And it was this guy who apparently was like just not a business guy or anything, but he just loved skateboarding and snowboarding and hanging out. And so he built the shop, and it didn't last a super long time, but the vibe was really cool in there. And I immediately wanted to just be a part of that. And so I wanted to ride for them. And I think I rode for them for all of a couple of months before they shut their doors. And then Tyson and I went to Borderline of Bellevue. There's a Borderline in Alaska, but this was the, the one in Bellevue, Washington, home of Peter Line.
Well,
right?
You got mentioned, and this is why I reached out again, because I was like, I'm always like trying to find great guests, and I'm like, I've wanted to have you on the show for a really long time.
Talked about it a bit.
And I was just down at the tactics thing for Jamie's 30, and someone's like, you just missed Josh. He was here. You need to get him on your show. And I was like, I fucking really need to get that guy on my show. We've already had a talk about it, and I need to get him on. He's super interesting and has so much going on. Great snowboarder. And then Peter came to that. So I got a picture with Peter Line and Jamie Lynn.
Beautiful.
At Tactics.
Yeah.
I was like, this right here.
Two perfect, like just like the examples of Northwest.
Whoa.
Because I think there's something both of those guys are expressive in so many ways, right? Of course, they're great snowboarders, but they're both incredible artists and creators.
Yep.
And I hope that sort of embodies what this place does for people. I think, when you're raised up in it, and they were our, sort of, they led the charge in that. And like, I remember seeing those videos with Peter, and he's like in front of his art that he had done, which is really, really interesting, like high level art, and thinking, oh, right, there's dimensions to this creativity. It's not just doing a trick or painting, a picture with your powder carve or whatever. This is just an element of all of your creativity that can come out in many different ways.
Such an interesting person. And both of those guys, introverts on a really big level.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Which is, kind of adds to it. I think that's one of the places where we go wrong in our society, is that we're trying to teach our kids to be extroverts.
Right.
And we're trying to have these charismatic leader types that are really, it's kind of hollow at the end of the day. Like, let's see the fucking actual thinkers, the people with the artistic, vision for a better spot.
Yeah, we do really celebrate an extrovert, even though the introverts are almost exclusively the ones creating like
They're
everything
the
cool.
ones, the best. And even on a level of a physical sport like snowboarding, that's got, one part passion, one part strength, one part bravery,
right,
and one part artistic. Like you can get these introverts that even with that strength thing, being like, that's what I said it to Chris Rasman like 5 years ago, because we were talking about the gender thing in snowboarding. That look, women get the support that they get because they're worse. I'm like, no, they're worse because the support they get.
Interesting.
Right? Because you're a Canadian, I said to him. Is there something physically about Canadians that make them difficult to support in snowboarding? Like, is it like your physicality is the thing? And he goes, well, no, we don't get as much money as the, and I'm paraphrasing, but you could kind of hear the wheels turning while he's saying, I'm like, less support. You get less results out the other end.
Right.
More support. That's why your generation did fucking huge shit. Right. And the less supported generation now is doing stuff smoother and bringing, like, the never been dones now are like, nobody's ever done something like this.
Right.
And then, but 100% style.
Yeah.
And everything shot well, and it's a sunny day, right?
Going back to those, and exploring those pieces of it, because it's not in the spotlight.
We're not doing the biggest things now. It's not like time to build a bigger jump.
Well, it's finally my time. Because I can't do that. I never was able to do anything past a 540, really.
I love Washed Up. Now, this is a movie that if you're a listener of this show and you haven't seen the movie,
gotta see it.
You have to see this movie. Where did it come from? Who came up with the idea?
So Sound Straight is a production company that's been making snowboard movies forever. I moved to New York and kind of missed a lot of it. It was sort of maybe a little bit after me. But Kurt Jensen is the everything behind Sound Straight now, and he's making movies that are accessible, funny, like, thoughtful. It's like it just makes you want to be a part of snowboarding, go snowboarding. I think there's a lot of snowboarding now that is or even any action sport that feels like it's got to be the most extreme, the most intense, the most, but we've seen all of that before, right? Like, I was watching something from some pro shred from 2003.
Sure.
And he's like, cab 1080, some huge step down.
It was so big.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh,
it was I'm terrible with the names. But I was just like, That's it. That was the 2003. This is like 20 years ago.
Yeah, Chad Otterstrom talked about 100-foot park jumps in a regular park, just like at a home resort, like where you'd go up in the morning and you'd warm up on a 100-foot park jump, dude. Like, the fuck is that? That doesn't even
Europe
exist
footage
now.
Where that crazy park in Europe, wherever, and those guys are all. So it's
that
for
Austin
me,
Sweeten footage, that massive, insane, as big as a jump could possibly get.
Yeah. And I think that for some people, that's probably what's most interesting. And that's great. There's an audience for that. Sure. But there's a whole generation of people, or people that have the interest that we do, which is more about just the experience of joy in the mountains and riding stuff that, like, especially for someone like me, it's like, it's sort of accessible, right? We're not doing anything death defying. We're just sort of like experiencing snowboarding in a really fun and exciting level, right? That get people psyched.
Videograss did that.
The great
Man
example.
Boys stuff did that. Like, there's this really cool connection to the community and that feeling, just like you see it. If you're an old guy that's been not snowboarding for a little bit, and then that gets in front of your eyes. Yeah. And you're like, oh shit, yeah, my friends. Yeah. My guys.
It feels like that, right? It feels like a group of friends.
I miss my friends. We should go snowboarding. Yeah. That's what this is about.
Absolutely.
As opposed to like, oh, they're doing 2650s now. Yeah. Cool. I should put my board on and try a 720. Like, it's
so in that way, I think
stuff.
Those movies are great.
And it's Kurt Jensen.
Kurt Jensen.
Kurt Jensen.
Who's a pro shred movie maker. Great, all in all human being. One of my friends.
The washed up. The movie just draws you in. The imagery's great, and the concept is.
And it's
just so fun.
It's got skits.
It's got the skits.
It's got some skits. You got some laughs.
Skits were a big deal for coming up.
Yeah, and I just think it adds it lightens it.
An element of what snowboarding's supposed to be.
Totally
is light.
It's supposed to be light and fun. Because it really is. It turns out
taking it super serious is some people. That's their space. I've been watching Shaun White stuff and like getting back on Team Shaun White. Like, he did some stupidly incredible shit.
He is an athlete like. Almost, watching him is you're just watching like an athlete, like a really honed athlete, and you can talk about his stance and his pants and every other thing. Yeah, it doesn't matter on it. It's like it just it's like it's almost like taking it feels like almost to more like traditional like endurance bicycling or something like that, where you're like these people are just specimens, and they do like gymnastics, right? You spend your entire life, which similarly to Shaun White, who was a very small child when he started training
with a heart condition, like you know what I mean, like with a heart condition. I actually
didn't know that.
Yeah, dude, he was fighting against like the doctor saying like you shouldn't even be a fucking athlete. Cool. He was one of those guys that just beat a heart condition and took it to like that level. The other thing about Shaun that really cracked it for me was Dear Rider. Have you seen the movie?
No.
So it's the Jake Burton story.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
So the scene where they're talking about Jake had died and then everybody takes the half pipe run at the same time. Yeah. But Shaun waits. And then he comes down by himself. It's not a contest. He's blasting so fucking badass for Jake. Like, it's such an emotional moment.
Expression of his love.
Yes, it's like he's a human being. Like he's a snowboarder, like in his core, Sure. And because he wasn't even on Burton, I think, when Jake died. Like, I think he'd started his white space stuff, or he was off, or something. But I mean,
he was on Burton for.
But it was like family
most of his life,
and it was this expression that I was like, ooh, seeing that, I fucking love that guy, because he's the machine you're talking about. He's the honed athlete, but he's also a human being that fell in love with snowboarding and that has that emotional depth to like, dude, that guy can fucking slay.
It's just easy to hate because he's so good. It's like people want I don't know why.
Yeah.
That's a funny part of human nature, but like taking people off of
it's the pecking order,
Yeah.
right? You think you're great. It's actually the expression of feminine energy to balance out that masculine thing. To be like, oh, you think you're so great? Well, you don't have very many friends. And then you're probably hurting Shaun White if you say that. He probably does wish that he wouldn't have to have given up like close friend relationships in order to train every single day.
To be the best, yeah.
But then also he can rest his head at night going, well, I fucking won though.
Yeah.
Like nobody beat me.
And also he's probably can afford a really expensive pillow.
Yeah, he probably sleeps pretty good.
In a bed overlooking the ocean in Malibu or something.
I mean, I hope so. I wish no ill will.
And that's no hate.
Anyone.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I think we've already touched on it in this episode, but my philosophy has become like, I want you to show up when I'm here. I don't want you to see me and go, oh, fuck, I can't let him know I'm gay, or I don't let him know this thing fundamentally about me. I need to hide it away. If that's how you show up when I'm there, then I'm a bit sad that Hannibal Buress does a joke on it. I wish I was a fly on the wall. That saying should be, I wish I was a person that these guys trusted to just talk around.
Yeah.
Because why would you want to be a fly? You don't understand anything. You're a stupid insect. But it's like, that's where I really want to genuinely come from, that place. I know I'm not there. I'm sure there's people that see me and are like, fuck that guy, he sucks. I have to hide away some part of me or make fun of me or he'll be a dick. Yeah. I'm a rollerblader.
Yeah.
He's going to make fun of me for rollerblading.
It's an interesting thing, right? The arriving your whole self with all of your stuff. Anecdote for that is that I was in a dressing room of my yoga studio that I go to a few days ago, and this guy, we were in a locker room with all sorts of people, and he was expressing all sorts of really deep personal things. And I was like, that is such an incredible ability. I don't have it, but it's this incredible thing that you can access. It's in there somewhere to be able to just give yourself to anybody that you engage with. Seems
like autistic people, if they're really high on the autism scale, that's just the way they live.
Right.
Very admirable.
Unencumbered by the idea that you may think I'm anything other than
this is what it is. Yeah. Mike Stiskel, who's probably your neighbor, he was the art director at Ride when it was absolutely incredible. He was also a part of Burton, but he was just so raw like that when I met him in the year 2000. He was just saying the most crazy personal things about life and about, don't take it seriously. It's just a joke. It's fun. I'm not going to say what he said, but he would say really, really personal stuff. Sure. And I was like, I fucking love this guy. He's fearless.
It's sort of intense when someone does that at first, because you're kind of caught feeling almost like anxiety for that person.
Yeah, and like he doesn't know how crazy everybody's going to think. Oh, right. He farts in public? Like, that guy's insane.
Right, you're concerned what other people are going to think, but it's
on their behalf.
On their behalf. Isn't that interesting?
You know what's so funny is that Mike Stiskel, I met him for probably less than 24-hour period or a 48-hour period or something. And I ate sushi for the first time with the guy. He ordered like quail egg stuff and weird sushi shit that I was like, wow, this actually tastes amazing. And he showed me viral videos. The very first person to show viral videos in the year 2000.
Do you remember what it was?
Yep. There was one where a monkey puts his finger in his butt, smells it, falls out the tree.
Yep. Classic.
What's up?
Oh, right.
And it was like
Budweiser commercial.
But it wasn't the Budweiser commercial. It was like Batman and Robin and a bunch of cartoons. That was the first one I saw of that. And I was like, this guy, he's just got like funny on lock. He's got honesty on lock. Yeah. He's got purple hair and he does what he wants. Yeah. I love this guy. I want to live more like him. But I mean, it took me 25 years to get that voice out of my head. That's like, everybody thinks you're an idiot.
Yeah.
You're acting like an idiot right now.
Do you think that your trips that you've taken through psychedelic medicines or plant medicines have allowed you to see that part of yourself and then not sort of engage with it?
It's a really difficult process. I think that it has to do with what I told you about the emotional love bank account that
Sure.
I got access to through this psychedelic experience. And I think that it really was, for me, it was tied around feeling accepted by my mother, especially when I was a kid, and realizing that she did accept me the whole way through. And then all of a sudden I felt myself to be acceptable. And that programming for the voice in the head that you're not good enough was simply just that. It was just like a means to, so she needed to keep me out of her hair sometimes because she had shit to do. So a shorthand would be like, fucking go to your room. You're being terrible right now. Go to your room and think about what you did. Right. But a lot of times she got it wrong because she'd hear a crash and then come running. What the fuck did you do? Go to your room and think about what you did. Meanwhile, the dog pulled down a thing and made a noise and now I'm in trouble. I'm mad. Right. So then in that thinking about what I did, it was more of just a self-programming of like, people aren't going to like what you're doing, dude.
Right.
Like, don't be yourself. Be something that people like, because when people like you, then good things happen. And when people don't like you, you don't have access to anything. So I was just trying to people please.
Which is such a symptom for all of us. Right. And even if you can fight against it as hard as you want, but there's parts of it that are like, feel like inevitably you will sacrifice something in yourself to make someone else think
100%.
you're look cool, whatever it is. It's like, it's such the hardest thing. It's like that breaking of the ego is like near impossible, but it's in that it seems like, and I haven't achieved it at all, but I'm very curious about it. I'm always really curious about how people get there. That the things that are created with it when you're not encumbered by other people's opinion of what you're doing and or what you're going to create are almost exclusively the best things.
That's it. Rick Rubin, what's his philosophy? He never created music for anybody else. It was just for himself. That's how I feel about the podcast. That also was a key in breaking it, because luckily for me, my heroes are guys like you that are actually excellent people, good role models in that they chose something in life that they loved and had passion for, and they worked at it and they tried and they progressed a sport, they progressed a pastime, but more than anything, they did the thing. Right? They were out snowboarding. So I was out snowboarding. I share that passion. I don't share the accolades because I couldn't film for anything because I never got to that level. I was just passionate about it without the, I was inept. I've heard Larry David talk about golf. He's like, I've chosen a thing that I'm seriously no good at, but I can't stop doing it. It's the best.
It's like almost everybody for surfing, right?
Yes.
The amount of hours you'll spend at this thing and you will never be good at it.
It is so hard.
And there's a real beauty in that. It's interesting though, like to note the people that get accolades for things.
Sometimes it's unwarranted and sometimes it's warranted. In snowboarding, we somehow did a great job at recognizing the Peters and the Jamies and the Terriers. Competition wasn't the greatest way to do it, but backcountry snowboarding and filming a part seemed to be a pretty good indicator of, I don't know, like work ethic, an ability to work with others. So like there's a lot of things in a top tier MacDog video part that could only be achieved if you have some characteristics that
there's that element, right? It's the raw talent and raw the sellability combined is usually who rises to the top. I was thinking about that before we started this interview and I always like, I keep saying at my age it's like a, like it makes me feel good that I'm still active at my age. So I'm 67. I'm still, I walk to the end of the block every day. But
there's a joke about it. If you say it first,
yeah,
then you're cool. Like, I'm 47, man. Give me some accolades here.
Yeah.
But if you say it last, then you're really old, right? Like, I need a sandwich. I'm 47. It just sounds
totally different.
Completely different thing. Yeah. But yeah.
But at 47, I'm still pushing myself on a snowboard as hard as I possibly can.
Yeah.
And I look to the beginning of the season, as I do every single year, like, what am I going to achieve? How am I,
That's rad.
But what I was thinking about today was that a lot of guys who have achieved what they hoped they would achieve in snowboarding as a profession don't do that anymore. And I wondered if possibly it had something to do with the fact that once you've achieved this thing, this idea that you had for yourself, that you can slow down and do other things. And that potentially I just never felt like I got to be
I think
snowboarder.
I think there's more people that feel like you, right? Like, and I think that a lot of the guys I've talked to had a rough transition from snowboarder to project manager.
Sure,
you know what I mean?
Or whatever.
Starting at the bottom and working their way up to where they're in charge of shit because they were in charge of their part before, right? Like and most people, I would imagine, feel like they still have it in them to do that again, but there's just no support there. Right. Like, it doesn't, but yeah, I'm with you on, like, someone like Damian Sanders, who I call him, I go, like, how often do you go? And this is 10 years ago. He's like, oh, I don't anymore. My knees are fucked.
Yeah.
I'm like, how could Damian Sanders not see the first snowflakes falling in Lake Tahoe?
So I think about this to the hills. I think about this same thing. Because that's it. I start to smell it. I start to I'll start to assemble my waxing bench and stuff, like all these little pieces. I'm just so excited about. I can't imagine an existence without that. But I also think that there's a point when you are, at a very high level in snowboarding or in any sport that you do, that you kind of finish that chapter. And I always wonder
Keith Wallace, where he's like, I refuse to go to a resort and say, hey, do you know who I think I used to be? Like, and then also the barrier to entry when you go back, you're on some other job,
right?
And you got to come, and you probably have a family. You got to come up with $1,000 to go for the worst day of your life. You're taking your children with you, and they just want hot chocolate.
Those are obvious, right, circumstances. If you have a family and you need to support them,
Yeah. And
I've always just felt like what I'm doing, whatever work I'm doing, and I was in New York for 16 years also, and I took a long break from snowboarding every day. But yes, there's responsibilities, but I tend to think that almost everything that I'm doing now is just to continue to go snowboarding.
Yeah.
And I think there's a group of us that are like that, but I'm just so curious as to, why people fully stop. I'm always really like, what was the moment? Like, what was the, when was the, and if there's sometimes physical injury or things like that, but
physical injury for Damian.
Yeah.
If he came back out in hard boots,
some Koflax,
like real Koflax, if he did Koflax on a kick, and just started like riding powder, and someone was filming him, that would be the raddest shit that's ever happened.
So my Damian Sanders story is I went to Craig Kelly camp as a camper when I was Craig Kelly snowboard camp when I was 13, 14. 15 maybe, and then transferred into working at the camp, and then ended up.
Oh, so you're friends with like Javis and that group of
Javis Len is one of my closer friends.
Of course, I met your group at the LBS, and I was like, these guys.
Kelly Joe, who was married to Craig Kelly at one point, and ran the Craig Kelly snowboard camp, is our other moms, all of our other moms.
Totally.
One of the just one of the most lovely human beings.
So rad that you're a part of that crew. I fucking love that so much.
It was an incredible time in snowboarding, I feel really lucky to have just kind of been to your point, like a fly on the wall, just to watch, because it was coaches were Keith Wallace, and there was also Camp of Champions happening at the same time. So you had all the Canadians, you had Boyer, and you had, I mean, the list goes on and on.
I'm
but
seeing a movie in my head of
all
that summer.
It's all that time.
I have that.
But Damian Sanders was there with his wife, Brandy Sanders, who was Penthouse Centerfold
Pet of the Year, I think. I think she was like the top one.
And I was 12 or 13. No, I was living at 13 that summer. And I remember being in the hot tub by myself at the Tantalus Lodge where we stayed in Whistler. And this woman, I hadn't met his wife yet, and Brandy Sanders comes out of, out to the hot tub, takes her robe off, and gets into the hot tub with me. And it was almost dreamlike.
Right.
And she started chatting me up because she assumed probably I'm one of the campers, right? She's there with her husband. And this woman is talking to me, which is insane. Like, I'm like, why are you talking? But I chatted with her. And anyway, I feel like it was one of the more like intense experiences to have as a young, formidable youth, excited for those sort of things. And then Damien came out and had a good laugh at me, and I'll never forget that moment. But I also wore hard boots that year because of Damien, and I had like found Koflax, and which was like really, it was like a whole thing. And I was riding a Heavy Tools, which is a funny name for a snowboard. To call it heavy,
it was insane
in the title, and indeed it was a very heavy.
Was
snowboard.
It the trick bone or what?
It was a trick bone.
Sick.
Nice work,
That's a sick fucking board, dude. I wanted that.
The Heavy Tools trick bone. Yep. It had a bone shaped nose and tail. And so he was like my guy, and I was like super obsessed with just kind of like chatting with him. And he was the kindest, like easiest going. I mean, from outside perspective, he's just such a cool looking human being. Yeah. Really powerful energy.
He told me that look that he had, because I was like, I got you, Damien. You watched the Lost Boys, and you got the fangs, and you did the thing. He goes, funny thing is, I was doing that before the whole thing. And one time there's some story he has about seeing Kiefer Sutherland, and he's like Damien. Yeah. And he sees Kiefer Sutherland. They give each other like a nod, like when he was young. Epic. I called his house. I got his phone number from God knows who somehow. Yeah. Looked it up on the internet. And he avoided me for a while. Then he finally was like, Eric, I'm sorry it took so long. He was the nicest person. Yeah. I was expecting a bad boy rebel or something. Something, right. So many people have talked about how nice he is.
Just pure kindness.
He's the sweetest dude. Yeah. Yeah, really, really,
which
really
is such
nice.
Powerful thing, right? To be on the stage that he's on,
the thing that he was doing,
and have
there's a I'll put it in here right now. There's footage of him from a McDonald's ad, where he flies so far to frame because the cliff that he did, they were expecting him to go. It was fucking huge. Yeah, they were expecting him to only go so far, and he just goes out of frame because he hit it like insane. Yeah. Damien Sanders was so good at snowboarding and so beautiful to look at when he was snowboarding that you could ignore that he was in hard boots with a 17-inch stance. Yeah. And that he won the Trans World Riders Poll the second year. He hadn't snowboarded the whole year.
Incredible.
He just was still the top guy. Yeah. Because the shit he had done 2 years ago was still better than what everyone else was doing.
Yeah, he had that energy, that carefree, like Cali energy that didn't really exist. The rest of us, I remember everyone was sort of like in big OR mitts and like big wet clothing, and everything was just kind of a mess. We were wearing the West Beach gear, the giant West Beach gear.
Stuff.
Which, with all due respect to West Beach, was not, waterproof or,
no, it wasn't.
It was just these big Jenko jeans, essentially waterproof Jenko jeans. But
truth.
He was like, in his own vibe, man. He's wearing like tight gear, and it just, but like looked great. It was similar. We were talking about like people who just exude a certain style but they don't seem like they're trying, but it's unique. It's like, that's it.
The number of people that have given him crazy respect, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and I was always really attracted to that energy in snowboarding, but luckily we have lots to go around. But I mean, Jamie's another great example. Jamie and Peter, both that way. Like they went their own direction. They had their own style. They had their own thing. That was so, beyond just the.
Yeah. I mean, with both those guys, like spins off the toes on the LibTechs for Jamie, like I still do that. That's what I always wanted to do, was a frontside spin off the toes. That's
Jamie's cab nines off the toes.
Off the toes,
I mean,
dude.
cab sevens, cab fives. I mean,
and then Peter's off access stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I give it to him that he created that, and a lot of people will argue that it happened in a lot of places at the same
around
time.
the same time. I mean, Daniel. I think people give it to Daniel. Frank,
Some people will give it to Daniel, but
I think he was. I think to your point, he was published, but it was Peter that did. I think you're right. It was Peter that did it. That did it first.
Yeah, definitely. And I think without that off access stuff,
Yeah,
I think we become freestyle skiing, or we're constantly chasing doubles and triples and quad flips, which we've got them, but they're corked. They even say it in the name, quad corks.
Yeah.
Right? Like because we needed something to differentiate between the like military training style of skiing and this like literal tracks that you had to be in order to.
I think
do
about
it
those
properly.
summers is that there was that because we had the skiers on the glacier.
Yeah,
And then we had the snowboarders. We were separate,
totally.
but you were able to see how the expression of snowboarding, how free it was
Youthful,
and youthful.
exciting,
and outside of the boundaries of anything. And literally you would look over and there'd be dudes in speed suits hitting gates all day, pop, pop, pop. And you would then look back and we'd have a band playing at the bottom of the pipe because Kelly Jo's a genius and she would get punk bands, like rad
So
punk
sick.
bands, and somehow get them all the way up on the glacier, get all their kits, everything on the glacier, put planks of wood down and have a punk band playing at the base of the pipe. I mean,
How could you not be hooked after that?
dude.
That's it. Like, that's it. I wasn't hooked. I was hooked on snowboarding from the beginning, but I wasn't hooked on, like, I could have been, put it away and started a family and gone to university and been like, this childish endeavor is not, a trivial pursuit that I'm not going to follow up on. But the year after camp, I turned 16. I got a car. I drove down and saw one of the guys from camp. Saw what they were doing.
Yeah.
Skateboarding, girls, drinking beers, smoking pot. And I was like, what? And then we went surfing. And I was like, road tripping is so psychedelic on its own.
Totally.
Because you're seeing a different reality.
Especially at that age.
It was insane.
Yeah.
That's when I was hooked.
Yeah.
100%. I'm like, this forever. Let's go to Hawaii. Let's go surfing. Let's go to Mexico. Let's check out this.
Yeah.
Like, I got hooked on the road trip. Buddies, pile into a car. You're going snowboarding somewhere. Whoever you meet up with and that you're riding with is going to be a blast.
Totally.
It always is.
It always is.
And so you've been able to encapsulate that in a production with Dirt that incorporates food, which is a big part of the road trip too.
Yeah.
Sometimes you luck out and there's some wild restaurant.
Yeah. I mean, I think for this current journey that I'm on with Dirt, which is an adventure food show on, so you can catch it on YouTube or on the Outside TV streaming network. I think for me, it's a culmination of that energy as well as a culmination of like spending many years in New York City, sort of honing my idea of what good food is and what accessible, how you can access culture through food. You drive to Queens and go to a Thai restaurant and you are just completely transported. Right. And I think that, Dirt is a reflection of like just that curiosity with a bit of a budget and a wider view. I do it along with Kate West, who is my producer, director. She wears a lot of hats, and she also, pretty much creates for us an infrastructure of like where we're going to go, who we're going to meet with. And without that, we wouldn't be going very far.
It feels like, and just correct me if I'm totally wrong here, but it feels like a very thinly veiled, way to get access, right? Because that's what I'm doing. This is not veiled at all. I want to go ride with you guys places. And when I get a lift ticket to Baker for opening day, I'm fucking ecstatic. Yeah. So like, if you can dream to go and try some food that you're going to love, and you get access to these amazing
and I think initially it was a lot about the ingredients. The idea of the show is that we're going to go to a place, and we're going to gather ingredients from around that place. Yeah. Oftentimes we meet with a chef at the beginning. Sometimes we don't meet with that chef till later on, but essentially that chef is going to give us kind of a lay of the land, his or her producers of the meat that they use, the vegetables they use, whatever it is, the wine that they serve. And that'll sort of start us off on our journey for these ingredients. And then through our collecting these ingredients, we really engage with the place in a way that I don't think anybody really realized until we were there, that each one of these people that we're meeting with tells this incredible story of the land, because they are growing things in the dirt, right? They're utilizing the weather, the area, all the things that encompass the environment of this place are reflected in what they're growing or raising or catching.
Plus and community, culture.
Yeah.
It's insane.
And family. And you really, within those ingredients that we're gathering from these people, you're seeing a place, you're tasting a place.
That's it.
Right. And then that's it. There's all these connective pieces that I think that we, also that I think I had this idea that might exist, but until you're there, you don't realize it. And you're like, oh, this is it. So one great example is that we were just here on the first episode, we did it in Seattle, and we went to Hama Hama Oysters, which is a oyster farm out near the Olympic Peninsula. And the oyster farmer was telling us about the water that filters down from the mountainside that collects in the bay where the oysters are grown, and that the minerals that water collects along the way will become what makes up that oyster.
Oh, wow.
So it's integral that they know what's going on that mountainside, right? And even further is the Olympic Mountains, right? So they're connected to all of the pieces of that environment that then develop their product.
Sick.
And the care for that, right? That's, I think there's a lot of disconnect for people with their food, but that's just literally like, where does this food I'm buying at the grocery store come from?
Sure.
Not necessarily what are the like micro isotopes that are making up the raw material that will then someday become this product, right? And like once you start digging, or start asking the questions, or start meeting with these people that are responsible for these ingredients, you don't realize how important all the pieces of our world are.
Yeah.
Or I hadn't.
Yeah.
Or that you sort of take for granted. And now when I'm driving along the highway, I start to like look at the water, but then I'm looking at the mountainside, or I'm looking at the rivers how the water collects in an area, then then goes into another body of water, and how all of those things are going to affect the food that we eat and the water that we drink and all of those pieces. So anyway, that's just
you nailed the mood, and you had like the elements are there.
Yeah.
The music is incredible. You as a personality is incredible. And just the idea that like a connection to place.
Sure.
And adventure and food.
Well, we're really lucky also to have Work Shirt, which is our Dave and Wade, Dave is the DP. He's the editor and a filmer. And then Wade, who also is a DP and a filmer and does all the sound. These guys are able to capture a place in a very beautiful way. They've got a gorgeous tone in which they film. Makes me feel, even when I go back and watch them, that like you really get to experience a place and you're there. They kind of give you a feeling of being physically in a place.
Hell yeah.
Which is great for what we're doing, because it's like we're really trying to express an adventure, an accessible adventure, in sort of anywhere you go, you know, and just sort of simple experiences of engaging with the community and the culture around a place.
Dude, you want one for Vancouver? I'm sure you probably have 100. Chef Tojo.
So that's the thing.
He's awesome.
That I get this all day.
Yeah, of course. People are going to pitch you like,
there's so many.
Here's the raddest thing. Right.
Chefs are an incredible place to start because they are so passionate and they have this innate understanding of the area. Yeah. Because that's where they're gathering all of their foods, right? So all of their material for their dishes. And so you through them, you can oftentimes get this really sort of specific view of a place, right? Because a lot of times they will have, and especially modern chefs oftentimes are now going to the farms and they're engaging with the people that are.
I see Chef Tojo at the farmer's market, and he's there before it opens because he's getting the best shit.
Right. Isn't that incredible?
And nobody knows it.
We've got a place here that my dad was going to his restaurant in the 60s. Wow. And now it's recognized as like the best sushi in Seattle, possibly.
Sick
in the country, but he's in there. Yeah, and he's 96 years old.
Oh wow!
And he's serving you sushi at 96. I mean, that's the sort of passion.
That's it. That's the thing. At this point, we take a quick break before continuing with some more snowboarding and stuff.
My first sponsor was Burton Rep sponsor.
Sick,
which was awesome.
Sick.
I do like a Burton product. I still, to this day, run Burton boots and Burton bindings. I've only ever run.
They make good quality shit, dude.
That combo. Yeah, they make really good stuff. And I'm a kind of like a person that does this, like habit is really sort of an important thing for me, and especially in snowboard. So I've been running the same stuff in that world forever. And after that, I got picked up by K2. Which is my only like real. It's
kind of hometown too, right?
Hometown. They were out.
Did you go to Vashon?
Yeah, I got to go out there.
And you got to see that thing where they wove.
Yeah, exactly.
That I loved going there. I thought that place had a really good culture, really good vibe.
Culture. Yeah, I mean, you're on an island like that, and you're hiring the local people. It was cool. That was a cool time for K2 for sure. And they were like on a tear, buying up everything, so they were in a pretty good financial position. I think they were at that time they were bought by a larger company, and
Shakespeare fishing rods and all that stuff.
And bikes and all these different things. So
they bought bikes. So you're talking about 2000, 98, 99.
98, 99.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, but as being a home Seattle guy, ideally I would have only ever ridden a LibTech or a GNU, and when I left K2, or was asked to leave. Another story.
Is that your buddy Blue when he came on?
No, Blue was after me. So this is way back. I was like 90, 98, 99. And it was the era of the clicker.
Yep.
And I fought pretty hard against the clicker.
Okay.
And
that would have been unpopular at the time, but correct.
Yeah. Yeah. It was it was the Nostradamus of my time. I knew
totally
those were ridiculous and didn't make any sense. And
oh man,
12 seconds it takes to strap in a board is well worth all that comes with wearing a traditional.
I really thought that we were going to figure something out. I really thought we were going to figure something out.
Yeah.
It seemed archaic. My dad had skis that had the old belt buckles with it seemed like we were doing the dumbest thing, and somebody's going to come up with some step-in thing that'll finally work.
Sure.
And when it went away, I was like, well, that's it?
Yeah.
We're not going to...
I think they really made it like not desirable.
Yeah, 2-3 years later, it was like, oh, that shit sucked.
Yeah, it was rough.
And it was expensive.
It was super expensive, and it was. I mean, I think there were like I get it if you're you had the opportunity to sort of revolutionize the sport.
The clicker was close in some ways when they put on the high back and all that. Then they put the strap back on the boot. I'm like, you're just doing the whole thing.
So that was it. I think in the end, what they were doing is they were reconstructing
the
binding around the boot. And at the end, I think there was like a high back and a strap.
There was. Can I
yeah, of course. Yeah.
Sorry, it's Mikael Bang.
Cool.
I've been waiting to hear from him for a very long time.
Yeah, of course.
Be 2 seconds. Oh, it's going to voicemail.
Shoot, take it.
You know what? I'll call him later. Sorry, man.
No worries.
I try
that's
never
a good one.
to do that. Yeah.
No, that's a good one.
Yeah, he's up in Squamish too, which is sick.
Oh, cool.
So
easy.
Yeah, easy peasy.
Low hanging fruit.
Like so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he up there in the winters mostly, or is he just visiting?
He stays with Mikey Rents, and I reached out to Mikey. I was like, dude, I know it's a long shot. Could you ask Mikko for me?
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, he's down. I'm like,
fuck yeah. That's a great one.
He's up there for a little bit until then he's back after Christmas. Yeah, I think even Terrier would stay at that place. I think Mikey's just he's like the hub for the Burton. For those Burton guys, you go and you hang out, and he takes you out sledding a bit, and then you get good like Mikael and those guys.
Yeah,
it's unfucking believable.
I remember those guys when they're all little kids.
Yeah, because you would have seen them. Well,
they were like the little runt.
90% of Mikael Bang for me is kid competitor.
Yeah,
like he was our Ryan Sheckler.
Right.
He was the kid that could crush it at contests.
Yeah. He Actually, this isn't good. Oh. Sorry, as we're taking breaks. We'll do this so you can see. Hi, babe. You not feeling good?
I just puked for the 3rd time.
Oh, my baby girl. Oh, so sorry. Oh, crappy. Full on stomach bug. I'm so sorry. Are you able to, can you get drink some liquids, or everything feels like it hurts?
I'm drinking some liquids, but I have this weird, side ache, and it really hurts.
Oh, yeah, it's crampy.
But I'm scared to take medicine, because I think it's just going to go right back up.
Well, what about the powder medicine?
I don't know.
Maybe take some powder Tylenol. You have that at Mama's?
I think so.
Okay. I'm so sorry, Chicky Butt. I wonder what else. Maybe a cold compress on your head?
Yeah, I have a fever.
Oh, my baby girl. I'm so sorry. You have everything that you need over there? Yeah. Okay.
I just
Excuse me.
weird. I can't keep my eyes open. Every time I try to, it feels weights on my eyes, and I just want to shut them.
Sorry, Papa. Can you get some? Have you slept at all?
Yeah, but I only sleep in really short periods of time. Then I wake up.
Yeah. On your birthday. What the heck? Good thing it was already your party and stuff. Yeah. I'm so sorry, babe. That's going to be a bit of that. I'm just doing my podcast here with Eric. Can I finish up and call you back? Okay. I love you, sweetie.
I love you.
Oh, shit.
Poor kid on her birthday.
Puking on your birthday.
Oh, good. I got to get a message out to Mikko there too. So that works out perfectly.
Good.
Man, we jumped all over. Which is good.
Too. I mean, it's good because we got a lot of info, but not great for your work ahead of
Oh,
you.
it's fine. It's easy.
Is it?
It's easy. I just listened to it on 2 times, and I pick out the spots where we got to edit.
Yeah.
We might be able to throw the one thing you said about, I don't know if we got all the way through it, about Huckberry at the beginning of the thing. Yeah. Because there's going to be a spot where I can just fit it in easy.
Right. That's just all beginning to end.
Yeah. And maybe this is a good prompt. Like, just like, what is Huckberry? How do you get involved with those guys?
Yeah. So Huckberry, it makes our show possible. And we live on Huckberry as far as where you can stream that's not true. Jesus Christ.
It's pretty complicated.
It is weird. Like, they're the company they're a clothing company that
produces
that's essentially. Yeah, they're the producers of the show.
So Huckberry produces the show.
Yeah. Huckberry, that's it. So Huckberry Presents is the media side of Huckberry, which is a direct-to-consumer online outdoor retailer.
Oh, sick.
Yeah. And in a way, it's really cool because what we're doing is we're wearing the clothing during the episodes, and people are able to sort of engage with Huckberry's product through this show that we're doing, Dirt, which is really cool. And so I met Kate West, who's our producer, director, writer, organizer of all things, in New York a long time ago. And when she reached out to me when she was at her first year at Huckberry as the content creating, like the boss of content creation. And we did a project together, and we talked about the idea for the show. And she pitched it to the bosses over there at Huckberry, and they agreed to fund the first one, like a light funding of the first one.
Yeah.
And we got it made, and the reaction was great. I think people really enjoyed this journey that we were on the show, where we're just really seeing a place through its ingredients, which are connected directly to its people, which are directly connected to the communities around these places, and Dirt was born.
It's crazy to me when I was, I'm not going to say I was driving and watching it.
Yeah.
I've watched episodes of it. But listening to it, just the audio production quality alone, I'm like, this is at the caliber of any mainstream television production that I've watched my whole life.
Yeah.
And now here we are you're not rich like a guy on Cheers or something like that, or like a cooking show guy from,
sure, like a network
the
streaming
network
thing that has zillions of dollars to throw out one of these things. Yeah, I mean, I think that really speaks to the passion that we have for this project.
Totally.
Because we're all probably putting more energy than is generally put into these things, but we are all really invested in this thing being a great experience for people. So the filmers, Workshirt, Dave and Wade, and Kate West and myself, we all feel really connected to delivering an experience. And I think universally, we're all also like very, very curious and excited for what we're doing. And, we get this opportunity. I don't know if a lot of people have access to what we're having access to. So it's sort of like, we're just all in creating something that we care about so much. But, so we continue to sort of expand and travel, and we've got, another year ahead, which is all, set up with some really beautiful places and some great partners too. We've been able to, get sponsors, that are partially things that we're using along the way, like Bare Bones, who makes different sort of knives and tools and that sort of stuff. Sick. All the way to like Red Wing, or stuff that we're wearing, stuff that we're using, which is really cool. Yeah. So that it doesn't feel that you're being pushed into it.
It's like interesting
it's an expression of the journey.
It's so close to like the snowboard script of how to do it as a pro snowboarder. You get different sponsors. You even called them sponsors, right? Like it's like we're in a different spot.
It's a different era, and I think that I think the show is a kind of a reflection of that, right? Because I think a lot of people see the show on YouTube, and I think YouTube is where content just seems to. I mean, that's where most people are going to get their content. Whether it's wild these social networks that people are using, or YouTube. I think YouTube maybe sort of the future of where people are going to get their content, because it's directed to you and your interests. And so we're at this really interesting time where we're able to sort of figure out the formula as we go, and what works. And one of the cool pieces is that we've gotten we've started getting interest and some sponsorships from tourism boards. Yeah. So the first one was Ireland. Sick. And it was an incredible experience. And it really, as long as they're comfortable with the manner in which we show a place. Yeah, because you're not going to change the format because correct for any reason. There's no reason to. Not too much. And if they get that this is a way to express their place in a unique way that'll be distributed in a more modern channel than whatever, like a blogging. Well, I don't know. I mean, I got to imagine you're at the marketing table of these tourism boards, and they're like, "How do we get to the younger folks?" Yeah, most of their marketing up to this point, from what I've seen, is like a poster or a billboard, like visit Ireland, visit. Right. Right. So this is more directly related, and the things you're doing, like, I'm going to take it into account when I'm booking where I'm going with my wife for a vacation. Hey, there's this spot, right? Yeah. And that's a big part of travel is the food. Totally. And then if the food has community tied in already, you're like, oh, we got to go to this place because they've been doing it this way for 300 years. Right. Exactly. And there's also this amazing ability to interact with people. So YouTube has comments, right? And so people are talking to one another. They're expressing something or a feeling about a place or a thing that they did at that place. And then other people can ask questions. And so it's sort of this modern way of travel where people are sharing information through experience. And I love that is where we're headed. Yeah. And I'm so excited to be like on that ride and figuring it out as it evolves, because I think for me, what I've always wanted to do is just talk to people and extract information about a place. Yeah, and I think that that exists really sort of exclusively on YouTube, unless you're getting sort of a really polished version or a scripted version on these other shows. But then the problem with that is that they're doing the thing that destroys creativity. Right. They're going, okay, we got to go to the most populous ideas and the least offensive stuff. And it's just like it rips the soul out if the direction is make a show that makes a lot of money. Yeah. Then obviously you're going to make a completely different show than make a show that exhibits the passion for this place. Yeah. And we also want to do that place proud. You're going to these people's homes, you're experiencing, you're showing their families, their lives work, or their great grandfather's work or mother's work. And so you have this this sense that you've got to express it with pride in the way that they want it to be expressed, right? And or at least reflect their pride. And that journey is really incredible too. And it's actually incredibly easy because people are generally so eager to express that energy and the energy that it's taken to create, and the pitfalls and the ups and the downs and all of those sort of things all come together to make these places what they are. And to tell that story has been feel really proud that I get to express their energy.
It's dope, dude.
public.
Like, it's a really well done project. I'm looking forward to watching more of them for sure. You bring in an element of action sports in there. You're jumping off some crazy thing.
Yeah.
Or you're surfing in some sick spot.
Sure.
Snowboarding's obviously going to be a part of that in some of them, right?
Yeah.
Not a lot of cuisine up in Alaska, is there? Oh, some stuff. There's
Alaska has is people. I mean, a lot of these places are telling stories. A lot of these episodes were telling stories of ingredients, but oftentimes you start telling more stories of the people almost than the ingredient, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of these, like Alaska's a great example. It's just rugged and remote and tough. And you got to rely on each other in this really beautiful way, right? So everyone's that you're on a little, we're out in fuck me, what's it called? Sorry, we were out at Halibut Cove.
Oh, sick!
And it's just like little chain of islands, right?
Yep.
And everybody knows each other, and it's this like reliant on one another in this most incredible way. And just to be able to tap into those communities and express that, right? Like when you get your mussel from Halibut Cove, you see this beautiful little mussel, but the idea of the community that it took and the energy that it took to get from that place to you is like, it's just part of it, right? It's like all about this this journey that these people are on with these foods that like it never ceases to be really beautiful.
Yeah, I think at the bare minimum, it is going to inspire a lot of people listening to the show. Like, go to a local restaurant, look up what's going on in your vicinity.
Yeah.
That's worth spending a couple of extra bucks to go check out, because it's...
You brought up farmers markets, and that's a great example. I mean, there's farmers markets everywhere now, and those people really are coming from the farms, the local farms.
They're the best too. Ask them what to do with the food.
Ask them what to do with the food. That's a great point. Or just ask them about the food, right? Ask them about where they are and what sort of soil that they're, what's going on. If they have cover crops are a really interesting thing. If the soil, if they're doing anything is this a regenerative farm? Is it a biodynamic farm?
Yeah.
Even if you ask anybody if they are a biodynamic farm, even if they aren't, it'll start a really good conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
Because biodynamics is a really, really interesting place for farming right now.
Permaculture is fascinating. I can't believe how, we accidentally bought this really, really amazing property. It was purely by accident that we wound up with such an incredible spot. But like figuring out how to be stewards of the land, right? Like how to make responsible choices about how to be stewards for the land. It's
we hear that
the raddest shit.
We hear that on every episode.
Yeah.
Stewards of the land is integral to your area that you're working on, the community and beyond, right? Like it also, I think people are finding that it is contagious. Like if you are a steward of your land, if you are willing to make sure that the nutrients get back into that soil, right? That the neighbor farm or, the neighbors are going to see that and potentially start doing the same thing. And then that grows. And that's the universal thing that we hear is how important that is to the future of our food.
It's the biggest shift and can make the biggest change, I think, in our cultures, in our society, is to reconnect with nature.
Yeah.
And the easiest way, you have to eat 3 times a day. You got to eat every day.
Right.
First through food and then getting off the phone somehow.
Yeah.
Right.
And farming is accessible is another piece.
Yeah.
Which I think is really important. And whatever it is that you're farming, like it's hard work, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's accessible to start doing. You can go buy land and start farming and growing and selling your crops with Again, it's hard work, but it's with relative ease. We had some farmers in Colorado who, lived in Denver and were in tech and, were these jobs that they sort of hated and they picked up and they bought a farm, and within 3 years they're selling products off of their farm, and they're just, you could just see it in their eyes. They're just feeling that exact experience, which is that they've connected to the land, to the places where their food had been coming from. And now that they're connected to it, you can just see in them a sense of like calm and ease.
Sick.
Right? Because once you rebuild that connection, you're rebuilding, I think, more than just that connection, right? Like, and even growing a garden is a great example. Like any experience where your hands are in the dirt and you're watching something grow and you're also eating it in different stages.
It's incredible.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
I always think like people should even, like, if you have a tiny apartment, just grow like one asparagus or something
herb or something,
or some herb, and just taste it in its different.
The easiest
elements,
one is chives.
Sure.
If you buy chives, take the chive that you wouldn't eat, the little bit with the sprouts on the bottom, put it in a piece of dirt. It'll grow more chives.
Right.
And just do that. Now you got a little friend, a tasty little friend. Totally. That you can have fresh chives on your stuff. It's so sick. Yeah. It's some cab driver told me, you want to know the secret to happiness? Like 20 years ago or something. And I was like, yeah. He's like, grow a garden. Yeah. That's what it is. It really, really does.
It's true.
They should be prescribing growing a garden. They should be prescribing walks in nature. Some places they are. And reconnection is really, really important.
Yeah. I think that may be the answer to healing this earth, because in those experiences that people have growing a garden, you really understand what's going on. You'll have a pest.
Yep.
But there's a reason that you have that pest, right? There's something about the soil that's off. So you have to change one thing to affect another, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're getting a rot or a mold, then there's something wrong with the amount of water that you're doing. That connection is what exists everywhere.
I'm so lazy. Dude, most of the things I've grown have been eaten by what I now know are just rats that I live in a city. There's rats.
Yeah.
They eat all my stuff. And at first I was mad. I put like anti-rat cages around stuff, like chicken wire or whatever.
Sure.
Now I just let them eat it. And sometimes I put stuff out for them. But they love these coconuts that I drink the coconut water. And I usually split the coconut, get the stuff out. But I left one out. Rat crawled in, ate it all. I was like, that's dope.
You're connecting with nature.
Yeah,
I mean, that's an intimate connection to your, your rat species.
They're cool little dudes, right? Like if they've got little families and everything.
I mean, they're filthy little, disease.
They're good, man. They're good.
Isn't that what we decide which ones are good and which ones are bad?
Isn't that nuts? It's nuts.
Yeah.
If I die of a rat-borne illness, you guys all know what happened.
I'll say I told them about that.
Yeah, they're gross. No, I like it. I feel like they're just little neighbors that live.
Yeah.
And they probably have a wonderful little house under this tree that we have.
It is pretty insane, the elaborate, like, tunnels systems they must be digging. Because I've seen the dirt they kick out. Yeah. It's like, that's extreme. Like, a lot of excavation. Yeah. It's like, there must be just a labyrinth.
I think to aliens from another planet, they would have a hard time telling apart, rats, pigs, humans, like, which ones are because we're all going to be speaking a different language than they speak anyways.
Oh, interesting.
Right? We'll be making noises, but we'll just sound like rats. Rats also make noises.
Yeah, it'd be funny they get down here and they're like, we're just going to talk to the dolphins because they're
I think it'll be trees.
Much better species.
Honestly, I think it'll be trees.
Yeah.
They're interconnected. They plug in. One speaks for all. Yeah. The trees, they're saying there's this itchy rash of some monkeys of some kind. They put up all the lights everywhere. Oh yeah, the human guys. Yeah, they're fucking it all up. Take those guys out of here, or get rid of most of them. Can you try and reason with them? They don't speak tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The trees have tried.
Yeah.
They've been reaching out for forever.
Giving us so much stuff.
Right.
Food, shelter, the whole
Houses.
thing.
Yeah. Everything.
Yeah. But we're not listening at all.
Have you read the Overstory?
No. What's the Overstory?
So go in 4 books in.
I see it.
Yeah. Take that with you.
Oh, thanks, man.
And enjoy
Richard
it. And
Powers.
I'm really happy that I get to share that with
Oh,
you.
thank you so much. Yeah.
It's they're stories.
Yep.
And if you get into a story that you don't love, just go to the next one.
Flip to the next one.
But there's a couple that
You can see there's lots.
It's some good. It's the writing is, I don't know, it's incredible. You're gonna love it.
All right.
The Overstory.
The Overstory. Tell me just a little bit about what your routine is now.
Yeah. So now, right now we're working on shows, but we're only off, we go out for a couple of weeks, every couple of months. So a lot of the time is post-production and pre-production for the next one. And in the meantime, I raise my daughter. I hang out with my beautiful girlfriend and our family, and I go snowboarding as much as I possibly can. And I still want to push and go bigger, further, faster.
Where do you have passes this year?
My passes are almost always at Stevens Pass and Snoqualmie Pass, and then I'll go to Baker for bank slalom and up to Whistler a few times for.
You still hitting Holy Bully in the? Yeah, I saw you the last one.
I've gone to Holy Bully a couple of times. It's such an incredible gathering of the community that I love. The snowboarding is really fun always, but it's a great community gather and almost as good as.
It's an add-on too, right? Like, because everything closes down, and then there's been a week or two. You're like, "What am I going to do?" And then you go to Bully. You're like, "Damn, this feels like it's going on forever now." This is
so
great.
Cool. It's great. Watching the kids kind of express themselves like that is like it's really nice to see, because that's it for snowboarding. It's like that flow is that hard to condense and put it into a small park, but they seem to be able to do it in this like.
Does it every year? Yeah, it's
very beautiful way. Yeah,
it's pretty sick. I always have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Last year I was like, I don't know if I can afford to go.
Yeah.
And then I'd left going like, I can't afford not to go to this.
Right.
This is like, it really pumps the tires at the end of the year of like, why do we do this? Oh, we do this for this.
Yeah.
Because there's a wonderful community of supportive people. The young generation gets it. It's because sometimes the internet's trying to hook me and tell me that the world is a piece of shit. That's what it feels like on my phone. And then when I go out in the real world, keep you nice
and scared.
Yeah, when I go out in the real world, I'm like, none of these people scare me.
Yeah, I think that's snowboarding. I mean, I thank the sweet whomever, powers that be that snowboarding exists, because I don't know how I would have gotten through a lot of this stuff that we've been dealing with over the last couple of years. And the snowboarding is just looking out into the beautiful abyss. And then nothing seems to like encumber that or make it any less incredible.
Yeah. You acclimatize to even shit conditions so fast.
Yeah.
You're talking about like rain and then and then it freezes and you're riding frozen, crappy
riding that
slush.
Last night with my daughter.
Yeah.
And it was the worst possible conditions that exist. And we were still, we were free.
Yeah.
We were laughing and playing and that's what mattered at that moment. And to be able to access that is hugely important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the mountains in Vancouver overlook the city.
Right.
So there's a lot of moments where you're looking down on the city going, can you believe okay, so there's 2,000 people up here.
Yeah.
So 1,998,000 chose not to do this. It's crazy.
Right.
This is
I think that a lot when I, living in Seattle for most of my life with the exception of some New York time, it rains here all the time. It's just drizzly, dark, cold rain. Almost exclusively in the wintertime, it's going to be snowing in the mountains. Yeah. I don't want everybody to go up there, but it's like during the week especially.
Well, we're reaching the people who are going anyways.
You should definitely go snowboarding and skiing at the mountains and get out of the city.
Oh, man. It's been an absolute wonderful day hanging out with you.
Yeah,
lots of those crazy coincidences when we're up there talking about that other stuff.
Yeah.
It just makes me feel like you're on the right path, obviously doing the
Yeah,
right
I feel
thing.
the same way about you.
Thanks, brother. It's I think there are those nudges that where you go, well, that's weird.
Yeah.
That you brought that up. Yeah. And the fish you were talking about, like Koji, and just
Yeah, that was strange.
Yeah, I like that kind of stuff because
The weird nudges that connect us and keep us exploring.
Yeah, that's probably the show I should do when I'm not doing FNRad anymore. Which I can't believe I even just said those words.
Weird nudges.
10
you're doing
years.
this forever.
10 years, and I love it more now than I ever have.
Yeah.
Because getting to hang out with people like you and talk with people like you and shred with people like you, it's like the best.
I agree. I think that this is it. I think that connecting with people is the great thing that we have access to in this world, and we should never stop.
Yeah, totally. Nice. All right, brother.
Right on. Thank you.
FNRad shoutouts this week to Josh Rosen. A very special thank you to Bo Rosen, whose birthday it was the day we recorded. Thanks for inviting us into your home, guys. Our Patreon family is growing. Join us for all things FNRad, plus some extras that nobody else gets. And be sure to come back next week for more FNRad snowboarding presented by FlowJoy Water and brought to you by FNRad Productions.